read about the recording of the meetings and then we'll proceed.
This council meeting is being recorded in accordance with council's webcasting of council's meeting policy. The recording will be archived and made available for viewing at any time on council's YouTube channel for a maximum period of 12 months. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, if you are in attendance in the public gallery, you should be aware that your presence may be recorded. Your continued attendance means that you agree to being recorded and also that you will abide by the council's adopted code of meeting practice. The chairperson or general manager have the discretion to interrupt the recording of any meeting at any time should it be deemed necessary. This may occur in circumstances where commentary is considered to be misleading, defamatory or inappropriate to be published, or where behaviour breaches council's adopted code of meeting practice.
Thank you, General Manager. Could I have all those who are able to please stand for the prayer and the acknowledgement, please. Almighty God, give wisdom to those in authority and guide all people in the way of righteousness and peace, so that we may share with justice the resources of the earth, work together in trust and seek the common good. Amen. I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional lands of the Wiradjuri people and recognise the strength, resilience and capacity of Aboriginal people in this land. Thank you. And while you're still there, and before I proceed with the agenda, I'd just like to acknowledge that Councillor Morse received her OAM today, and congratulations again on behalf of Council. Herself and 15 others were down in Government House, and the report back, she had a great day. So once again, we'd like to acknowledge you on the work you've done in local government. Thank you, Councillor Morse. And also acknowledge we do have another OAM here in Graham Hanger. Thank you, Graham.
He's led the way well.
Okay, we'll go to item 4, apologies. General Manager, are there any apologies?
Mr Mayor, I have one apology from Councillor Jennings.
Councillor North, Councillor Fry. No discussion, then I'll put it there, carried. Number 5, the minutes. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Bathurst Regional Council held on the 19th of August. Could I please have a move and a second? Councillor North, Councillor Orban. Any discussion? No discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour, those against, carried. Item number 6, declaration of interest. General Manager, do we have any declarations of interest?
Mr Mayor, I have 4 declarations of interest. One from Councillor Fry in the Director of Environmental Planning and Building Services reports, report number 8.2.3, the Taco Bell DA. I also have a declaration from Councillor Fry in the rescission motion at item number 11.1, also Taco Bell matter. And then I also have a third declaration from Councillor Fry, and that is in the rescission motion that may need to be put subject to how the rescission motion goes. He's declared an interest in that one, and that is a Taco Bell matter as well. And Councillor Morse has declared an interest in the Director of Corporate Services and Finance's confidential report 13.1.4, and that is to do with the Catholic Cathedral matter.
I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Orban, Councillor North. Any discussion? There's no discussion, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour, those against, carried. Now I come to the Mayoral Minute, and I'll just read out a little bit of what's in the Mayoral Minute. I hope councillors are all received the Mayoral Minute. It just continues down the track where we've been with trying to help those out in COVID-19 and the stimulus we can put back into the community, businesses and sporting groups. And we'll continue to support the businesses and the community in whichever endeavour we can do. The Parks and Gardens Active Space Community Groups user fees are waived this time to a value of $34,500. Sport and Rec Council support for COVID-19 costs, e.g. cleaning incurred by sporting groups, and allocations of $10,000 is put towards them. There's assistance to creative industry with $10,000 going to Arts Out West. They're struggling at the moment, and we've had those working parties with them, so there's a bit of support for Arts Out West. And there's a current estimate cost of COVID-19, including council stimulus measures, it's costing us around $4.172 million for the 2021 budget, and council will work to balance its budget over the year to ensure the ongoing sustainability of council. So what I'm saying is it's still a long road. We're not out of COVID-19, and I think we're doing a very good job as council and councillors in addressing the concerns of the community. So thank you very much. So you've got that there. That's a little part of the Mayoral Minute. It's moved in second. Is there any discussion on it? Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're very fortunate in Bathurst that we have managed to survive without the COVID restrictions that they do in a lot of places. But nonetheless, people are feeling the pinch now. There's sporting groups that you listed here. They're feeling they don't have their sport. The artists and the musicians don't have the opportunities. So what council is doing is really, really very special for the community. So I think we have done a fantastic job in being seen to support not just the whole community, but it's a big issue nowadays, the mental health of the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Councillor Orban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations once again for this package to you and the staff. It's should be very well received in the community. And can I just ask one question of the General Manager? Has Council received any stimulus packages from either tier of government as yet? Is there anything available?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have received some stimulus. Directly COVID related is probably the boundary that we put around it. The federal government, as you know, recently with the infrastructure program was about $1.248 million. The state government has made available some funding for staffing costs, but we're not eligible for that. They did make $213,000 available to us to deal with the childcare impact that occurred due to the federal government's JobKeeper program and the direction from there not to charge childcare fees. So we got some money there. We got a bit of money out of the state government for the dog pound. And the federal government did advance us what we would normally get in terms of FAGS grants. We also have had some subsidy for the emergency services levy, which the state government charges. They've for this year will not increase will take the increase on that levy, which has gone up 50% in 2 years. So there's that. The other side is, and they're not what you would classify directly as COVID subsidies, but we have dragged that 20 odd million in terms of water.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. GM. I'd probably like to say from that council has really gone out on a limb to actually do our own stimulus packages, because it looks like we're actually giving out more than what we've been receiving. So can I just say congratulations again?
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Any more discussion? Any Councillor North?
Yeah, just to say, Mr. Mayor, look, I know from the meeting that I was at on Monday night that Councillor Christian was with me at the Sport and Rec. When you talk to sporting groups, and I guess it would be the same with our cultural and arts groups around town, you don't quite realise what the work that the volunteers are doing and the extra measures they've got to put in place to stay open, to offer their services, their sports and all that. So I know, listening to everyone at the meeting the other night, that $10,000 to help them on COVID expenses, it's going to go a long way, because the efforts have got to be put in place to keep the social distancing, to keep everything clean, has been a big job. And I think every councillor here that has to be recognised for their efforts, because I know we've probably been knocking on your door and the General Manager's door quite a lot to say this group needs help and that group needs help. It's good to see the Arts Out West $10,000, and I just wonder, I haven't seen a lot where some of the individual cultural and arts groups, and I'd probably encourage them to, they should contact us through us as councillors for assistance. But I think the Arts Out West and what they do with emerging artists in all areas, I think that's a really good grant. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor North. And once again, I thank the other councillors for their input into the Mayoral Minute. Is there any more discussion? If not, we'll move on. We'll go to item number 8, receive and deal with general managers and directors' reports. Councillors, item 1 is disclosure by councillors and designated persons returns. Could I please have a minute?
I could just make a comment. The returns are tabled here.
Okay, so they're right there to have a look at. So I have a move in a second. Councillor North, Councillor Christians. Any discussion? We've had that with the general manager. You know where they are. So I'll put no more discussion anyway. If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, those against, carried. Gee, this is an important one. The election of a deputy mayor. Could I please? Well, I don't have a mover in a second for this, do I?
Not at this stage, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, at this stage, I've received one nomination for Deputy Mayor, and that is from Councillor North. Has anyone else got a nomination for Deputy Mayor? If they have, then please bring it up. Mr. Mayor, there being no further nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor, Councillor North is re-elected as Deputy Mayor for the period to September 2021.
Thank you, General Manager. And once again, congratulations to the Deputy Mayor. He's been a support this year to me, and hopefully we have another 12 months of good support between each other. And he will go down in record of probably being the longest serving Deputy Mayor that we've had on council since Dick Locke. Would that be right? You're equal with Dick Locke. So that's a great achievement, and once again, thank you. All right, we'll move on to Director of Environmental and Planning Building Service Report. Number 1 is Section 4.15 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979. Could I please have a move and a second? Councillor Orban, Councillor Christian. Any discussion? No discussion. Then I put the motion. Those in favour, those against, carried. Item number 2 is the general report. Can I please have a move and a second? Councillor Orban, Councillor North. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour, those against, carried. Item number 3, modification of a DA 2019/367, demolition of commercial building and part dwelling, construction of a food and drink premises with drive-through, change from dwelling to office, 103 to 105 Stewart Street, Bathurst, applicant McDuck and owner Gulliver. Could I please have a move and a seconder?
Mr. Mayor, I'm declaring a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in this, as I have a cousin who has a dwelling opposite the proposed development, and I'll be remaining in the room and voting.
Thank you. I got to move. Councillor Christians, Councillor. Point of order, yes.
Look, I understand Councillor Fry to be an honourable man, and it's not an issue in regards to that. However, I am uncomfortable, and I do think it is inappropriate if he stays in the room, as he has a relative that lives in the direct vicinity of this DA. And not only that, but has been a very vocal objector to this DA. I do not believe it's in the public interest for a minute.
Thank you, Councillor Christian. Now, General Manager, I'll just move on. And
through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a matter for Councillor Fry to determine the position that he's in terms of this item. He has filled in the appropriate declarations, and really he has to operate on his own advice.
I know that said, however, I do feel like this will set an extremely dangerous precedent. To have a relative that lives in the immediate vicinity of this DA and to have this councillor who in fact was the deciding vote in the last DA, I think is completely inappropriate, and I don't know how we can move forward with this issue hanging in the air tonight.
Well, Councillor Christians, we have to move on with the meeting, and as the General Manager has said, it is up to Councillor Fry. He has stated why he's staying in here, and I don't have the to remove him, so we continue on as council. Objection noted then. Yes. Okay, move. Councillor Christian's already, your second, Councillor North. Now, I'll ask for any discussion. Councillor Morse?
I was going to ask for an amendment, Mr Mayor. In the recommendation, number 4, the condition of the noise, it says poorly tuned or malfunctioning cars. Could I please delete that number 4? Amendment to delete number 4 of the...
Are the mover and the second are happy with that?
I can speak to it if you like.
Yes, you can speak to that now.
I realise that the Taco Bell are very concerned about noise in the drive-through, and they're trying to limit the noise for the neighbours, and we appreciate that. But quite frankly, poor tuned or malfunctioning cars will be reported to the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority. I mean, really, is that terribly practical? Are they going to stand out and say you're too noisy? And quite frankly, I haven't heard a noisy car for a long time. And I just don't think it's very sensible and to say they've got to put a sign up saying, well, you know, your engine's too noisy. And it's adding another burden of reporting these noises to the EPA. I just don't think it's necessary.
Thank you.
I appreciate that they've tried to make an effort.
Okay. Councillor Orban?
Yeah, just a question, thanks Mr Mayor, for the Director. The cars coming into the drive-through, there was talk of them having to turn their engines off, and I guess this is part of that whole scenario. Was that council that put that recommendation on, or was it did it come from elsewhere?
Through you, Mr Mayor, there were previously 2 parts to Condition 85. There was turning off the engines, etc., and then reporting malfunctioning cars to the EPA. Both of those were in fact in the applicant's application, expert reports, as means to mitigate the impacts of the development on neighbouring properties. They subsequently requested that the first part, turning on and off the engines, be deleted, and so we're happy to agree to that. They made no reference to this other part, but as I say, it did come from the consultant's own submission.
Thank you. Councillor Hanger.
Yeah, can I just ask a question? I wonder if the mover and the seconder of the amendment might just look at changing the word will to may. Takes away the onus, and it's there if it's needed, may be reported. Keep it in there, but just change the word to may.
Well, the mover and the seconder need to take that on board. No drama. Okay, well, that's happy with that. Is there any more discussion from Jackie? You got any discussion?
No.
Right. Okay. Yeah, Councillor Christian? No?
Yeah, just in closing, I think that's a great example of just how this developer has gone above and beyond by implementing, a condition where cars may have to turn where people may have to turn their cars off. So they are worried about the noise, and they were going above and beyond what they had to. However, I agree 100% with Councillor Morse. I just don't think those conditions at all are really appropriate. Well, we had a discussion a month ago at the other meeting. The whole point of supporting a DA such as this is to create jobs for locals. It's going to create about 50 jobs for young people. It's going to help our economy. I think we should do everything we can to ensure that businesses like Taco Bell come to Bathurst and we make the job as easy as possible for them. I don't know how any councillor here tonight can actively vote against this DA when the RMS, council staff, the applicant themselves have done so much research, and essentially what we're reading is that this is an appropriate place and it's going to create a number of jobs, 50 in fact. So I think that's something to be mindful of for any councillor voting in a minute, because it's been a long time, I think, since a business has come here and offered that many jobs to young people, and that's all it comes down to in my view.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? If not, then I'll put it there. Yeah, you read it out there, General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I have the motion as what is typed with one change, and that is in condition number 4, where you've got the italics, and it'll be poorly tuned or malfunctioning cars may be reported to the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority, EPA.
Okay, you've all heard that. Now I'm going to call a division. All those in favour? Those against? So that's 2 against, carried.
Sorry, who was the second one against?
Eh?
Who was the second one against?
No.
Were you for or against, Jackie?
Are we voting the recommendation of A, B, A, C, D, A, B, C and D?
As it was with that slide modification.
Just a modification.
Councillor, as what is written in your report with
Yep.
item number 4, which talks about condition number 85, the italic where it says cars will be reported, it'll become may be reported.
Yes, I'm positive.
You for that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so there's 1 against. Okay, we'll move on. Carried. Number 4 is development application 2020-183, proposed shed at 78 Gilmore Street, Kelso. Applicant and owner, Mr. J. Smith. Question first.
To the Director of Viable Plan and Building Services, was a letter email forward to the councillors within the zone what was going to be stored in the shed. Can I have your take on the storage of his work equipment in the proposed shed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, the vehicles and equipment are the property of the possessions of the property owner, and therefore it's for their own storage purposes, as distinct from running a business from those premises where there'd be other equipment coming and going. That's the first point. Second point is that council staff requested information from the applicant as to the nature of what it is they'll be using the shed for, and we have taken in good faith the applicant's submission in that regard, which is included as one of the attachments to your documents, that it is for personal use. That the person owns a vehicle associated with their day-to-day work is really of secondary consideration. That would be council staff are of the view that would be quite reasonable for the person to park their vehicle in a shed, and that it's a large vehicle is really, I think, inconsequential. Finally, it related to a different DA, but very similar circumstances, where council did in fact seek legal advice in regards to whether that's ancillary, the parking of a big vehicle is ancillary to the use as a residential premises, and the advice that council received was that it is.
Okay, you're happy to move it? Move, Councillor North. Seconded. Need a seconder? Councillor Orbit. Now, any discussion, Councillor Graham?
Yeah, can I move an amendment, Mr. Mayor, that this item be deferred for further discussion?
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Fry. Would you like to speak on it? Do you want to know? No. Well,
Through Mr. Mayor, I have a motion on the table and we have an amendment. So there can only be one amendment and one motion on the table at any time. All you'd be doing, Councillor Morse, at this time is foreshadowing a proposed amendment, and you'd wait till the amendment has been dealt with.
Mr. General Manager, can Councillor Morse let us know what the foreshadowed amendment is?
That's up to the Mayor.
no, you was first to go there. Well, that comes after your amendment.
Yeah, but it's foreshadowed, so we should be.
Well,
anyway,
look,
matter.
if you'd like Councillor
Mr.
Morse to go ahead, I'm happy if she wants to go ahead.
I can just mention it because I thank
Righto.
the director for pointing out that this shed is for the storage of vehicles. Therefore, item number 7 in the recommendation, the shed is not to be used for residential purposes without council's consent. That doesn't make sense to me. Either it's a shed or you live in it with your trucks and bulldozers. I think that should be the shed is not to be used for residential purposes, full stop.
Okay, but so we'll go back to the amendment first.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, there's quite a deal of discussion about the size of this shed and the placement of the shed in a heritage area. I don't know that we've covered it as well as we could have done. I think there is a case to be made for deferring it, discussing it again. Nobody's going anywhere, and I would suggest that councillors think seriously about deferring this, and we'll discuss it further. Thank you.
Thank you. I might just speak on that. I'm not really in favour of a deferral. I think that we need to move on with this. I do think that the container on the property is an issue, and maybe a condition of the container is more the talking point. But I'm not for a deferral. I think we should discuss it tonight. Any other discussion? Councillor Fry.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to Councillor Hanger's amendment that it be deferred and we undertake discussions with the owner and as you say, a commitment to removing or relocating that container and ask the developer, is it possible to move the shed slightly to the northwest? That would probably make it more acceptable to the surrounding landowners. That would be my take on the amendment, that we could go back to the table and discuss slight changes. I mean, this is a complying development. I'm not saying we can't have a shed there. I'm just saying maybe we can fine tune it so it makes more people happy.
Yeah, I just feel what we are deferring, Councillor Hanger, really just so Councillor Rudge.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to know why it's contained to remain on property when there is a shed the size that the applicant is building.
Would you like to answer that, Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't answer that question. The applicant has requested that the container be there. It does carry, council has noted that it is exempt development. It was at the time. Those circumstances have evolved with the passage of time, and therefore the person is entitled to have the container there and has sought to leave it. Can I suggest that if that's an issue, then council could still determine the application?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Orban. Amendment of a deferral. Yeah, no. Okay, any more on the amendment of deferral? I'll put the motion. Those in favour of deferral? Those against? Oh, yes, you can if you like. Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, just to wrap up, this is a heritage area that, you know, the very first beginnings of Kelso, 1826, and we've all read it in here. The church opposite is part of the state heritage. The building adjacent to it is not. the front building of this particular premises built approximately 1840 and was part of the residence for the school that was there. I think we're doing a big disservice to the whole area if we allow this to go ahead without just a little bit more discussion. And it's been pointed out that we could do something here and do something there. It's like sort of just don't look at it as a sausage sizzle at Bunnings. You don't go along for the sausage, you go for the smell and you go for the sizzle. And this is what this is about. The sizzle is the heritage area and the onion, but the heritage area, and I think we could do a little bit better. That building has been there since, that next door has been there since 1826. I doubt that there's a building older in Bathurst, and I think we owe it to the whole area and to the community to just think about this one a bit more. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll put the motion there again. Both. Deferral. I'll put the deferral. Those in favour of deferral? Those against? Carried. Right, we go back to the lost. We go back. No, Councillor Morse wants to.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. At the moment, yes, we've got the motion from Councillors North and Auburn as typed, and Councillor Morse is now seeking to move an amendment.
Right, Councillor Morse.
Actually, I'd like to make two amendments, or at least ask. First one, item 7, I would say the shed is not to be used for residential purposes. Full stop. Item 8 quite bemuses me actually, because we have been told that these vehicles are to do with Mr. Smith's work. This is what he does. It's his business. Item 8 says the shed is not to be used for commercial or industrial purposes or the storage of goods associated with commercial or industrial undertakings. But that's what it's for. That, to me, item 8 just doesn't make sense. We've been told by the director, by all the papers, that it's for the storage of goods and vehicles to do with a commercial or industrial undertaking.
Can you ask for a question on that for that to explain?
I can ask a question about it. I think it should be reviewed. Just doesn't make sense.
Well, there's a question there.
I mean, we can all vote against this shed anyway, but perhaps the general manager can advise me on this.
To the director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Attachment 5 is the submission from the property owner, the applicant, about the use of the shed. Yes, they have a business. Yes, that requires the person to have a truck to go to work. They also have lots of other stuff, including the collection of their own private vehicles, plus any other goods and chattels, which most of us, many people would have. And certainly we're seeing an increase in the number of people who would like to have big sheds. So it's the intention of condition 8, or B part 8, is that it not be used to operate the business from. That is, it is not being used for business purposes. Condition 7, if I can refer to that one, Mr. Mayor, is written that way because a secondary dwelling would be permissible with consent on that land.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but item 8 says goods associated with commercial. Now, I don't know anybody who owns a sort of grader just for their private use, unless it's commercial.
Thank you. So, General Manager, can you read out the terminology and the amendment?
Mr. Mayor, I understand. Well, I'll read what's the amendment, but there is no seconder to it at this stage. But the amendment is as what is typed, I take it. Then number 7 is to be worded, the shed is not to be used for residential purposes, and condition number 8 is to be deleted.
Can I have a seconder to that? Yeah, question.
With 7, and I think Councillor Morse, if something is allowed under our code, we're just making it quite clear that because it's allowed under the code, you've got to seek permission before you go there. Is that correct? Because it's under the code, it could be done if they followed the correct procedures. That's what we're acknowledging, isn't it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, a secondary dwelling is permissible with consent on that land, but that doesn't mean council can't contemplate some variation from that. It's just that it gets complicated. Yes.
So
I might ask a question then. If they're going to
before
live...
that, I've got to get a seconder
Oh.
to this.
The question?
No, I let councillor North go. You'll second it, councillor? Hang on. Righto.
Well, it's just a question. The idea of this shed is to store things. Well, either you have people in there living there, or you store the stuff. So when they live in there, they move the stuff out. Is that correct? So if you've got people living in there, they cannot live in there with their trucks and bulldozers. Which seems silly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure there's reference to bulldozers.
Well, there's other vehicles besides trucks.
Yes, there's the application you're dealing with does not contemplate residential uses of the proposed shed. To reinforce that position, Part B7 was proposed, is recommended to you, such that if there is to be a change of use of the building, or indeed a subsequent owner of the property chooses to change the use of the building, that there is a proper process to be applied.
Okay. Councillor Fry.
Question through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director. I believe the shed is 300 square floor metres. If they did in future decide they wanted to convert that to a dwelling, would they be allowed to have a 300 square metre dwelling on that block?
I might take that question on notice, the actual dimensions of a maximum size of a secondary dwelling. But as I say, Mr. Mayor, that's a hypothetical question that doesn't affect the determination of this approval.
Okay.
This application.
Is there any more discussion? Your amendment. Comment?
If we as councillors make decisions based on what someone may do in the future, we're probably going to fail in our duty of care of what we're doing. What we've got before us is an application for a shed. Probably a few of us have got to worry about a container that's on there that was legal to be on the site at the time it was put on. Now, if applicant was to request a container, but talking about what he or she may do in the future is not what we're debating tonight, and it's nearly a point of order, which I was going to do. We are talking about an application before us. You know, what they may do down the future is something that may come to us as councillors to determine. If the councillors have been here for a while, we know one that was out Rockley, that was a shed that a person wasn't allowed, converted into a residence, sold it, and the poor young couple that moved in here, and the mayor, myself, and I think Councillor Morse, you were here then, and Councillor Hanger and Councillor Orban, I think we all felt bad for them, but we said, you can't live in there. So there was one where a person, you know, it is simply saying if they want to do it down the track, they must get consent. But that is not what's before us. We need to spell out to people what they can and can't do, and I'm glad our staff put that in there. And sometimes we can understand it in different ways, but it's been said to us that the people with the experience, with the degrees, with the knowledge, with discussing with the people, that they've decided we've got to have that condition in there. That condition is a condition of consent. We are talking about a shed, not what they're going to do in the future. And I'm going to be voting on a shed, not what this person's going to be doing in the future.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Okay, I'll get the General Manager to read the amendment and then we'll vote on it.
Mr. Mayor, the amendment is as typed, except for a change to clause 7, which is the shed is not to be used for residential purposes, and full stop. And number 8 is to be removed.
Okay, I'll put that there and call a division. Those in favour of that amendment? Those against? Carried. Lost. Now we'll go back to the original motion that Councillor North moved. Go.
Yeah, well, if the seconder accepts it, based on the fact that we're talking about the container, that maybe point 9, that the applicant would consider that once the shed is constructed and in place to be used, that the owner of a property would consider maybe not having that container on site. But yeah, that's what I want to have added to it at that point.
Are you, the seconder, happy with that?
Yes.
Councillor, hang on, I'll just ask the seconder, happy with that?
Yeah, look, as long as the term "to consider it" is in there, I mean, it's probably a bit wishy-washy, but that's fine.
It's a bit wishy-washy. Councillor, I'll go to Councillor Rudge on the screen.
No, you're right. I'd like to see the container removed. I don't know what the wording could be there, but I don't see the need for the container to remain on the property if there's a shed that size. I really can't see the point in it.
Okay, so I'll go back to Councillor Orban now. Now this is
Mayor, just can I just make a suggestion with that amendment, which I do agree with, but it would be something like, and the director could put his own words in it, but something like the condition of consent would be the container be moved after building of the shed before the final certificate's issued.
Correct.
Are you happy with that, Councillor North?
Through Mr. Mayor, there's a couple of different aspects to the conversation I need to address perhaps separately. I appreciate the intent of Councillor North's amendment that there be some consideration given, but it doesn't give direction. It's a person could consider it fleetingly. If the issue is the container, if councillors are of a mind to require the container to be removed, as distinct from consider, then that can be contemplated as an additional condition. But I do remind councillors that it is there in accordance with the exempt development criteria of the day. Having said that, those criteria have changed since then, and it would be more difficult to locate the container on that land under the current criteria.
So, okay, Councillor Christian.
Yeah, look, I think that we need to keep out of people's lives. Would I want that container next door to my place? Well, not particularly. But like the Director of Planning's pointed out, the laws of the day allowed that to happen and allowed that to be placed there. Now, he may consider the use of that container an important part of whatever he's doing. Why should we come in there and just say, yeah, if you want the shed, yeah, do that, but we want you to move it over here, and also we need you to get rid of that container. I think that's sort of moving into dangerous territory, demanding what people do with their backyards, particularly when things were put there legally in the first place. I've got concerns about that. I think we should just simply deal with the shed and move on. We need to get out of people's lives, not impose ourselves on what they're doing in their own backyards.
Is there any more discussion? So I'll get the General Manager to...
Mr Mayor, I have the motion at the table at the moment. Both the mover and the seconder, I understand, have agreed to the variation to it, and that would be as typed with a condition clause 9 that the owner be asked to consider removal of the container currently on the property.
So, consider?
That's what my words are.
Righto. He has...
Can I close?
Yes. I'm just...
Councillors, and I put your memory back at a lot of things that we speak here, and we have information put in front of us, and we ask for things to be done. We can ask someone to do it, and we've had cases in the past, and I know a case, and I'm not going into it, that went to court, and we said we'd like him to look at modifying that, although it was allowable. Before this case went to court, this person changed 3 of the 4 things that we wanted. We've said, decent person, he wants to put up a shed. Well, if he finds that he doesn't need this container after a 3,000 metre shed, would he consider moving it? That's why the words consider. Because what Councillor Christian said is right. We don't have the authority to tell him what's going on in his backyard, but if he finds in a shed that big that he doesn't need that container sitting there, that was allowable when he put it there, wouldn't be now, but was allowable. But I think there's nothing wrong in asking the fact, you know, you can say it could be a fleeting thing. Could be. But could you consider it? People ask us all the time when we come in here, would you consider voting and supporting my motion? Consider it. Do we always support it? No, we make our decisions up based on facts in front of us. I get regularly asked, would you consider my application? Here we're asking the person that's put up a shed that's legal, hits all the requirements. What Councillor Christian said was right. In his own backyard, we shouldn't be looking over the fence. But just out of courtesy, it's a bit of the Australian way, talking to your neighbours and all this sort of thing. Well, would you consider it down the track? You know, maybe he's thinking, oh, this massive shed here, I've got this container here, geez, I'd like a bit more room. Would you consider it? He might find he doesn't need that. He might need it because a container, I think, would probably be more security conscious than maybe a colour-blind shed. And maybe that's why he wants it. But it's not my business to ask him why he wants it. That's why I use the words consider. It doesn't change the intent of his application, but we're just asking the person who put it in, would you consider it? That's where it's come from. Just think about it when you come into here. How many people send you emails and that, would you consider my application? That's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No, that was the end of the discussion. You had your time. Now I'm going to put the to the council, and now I'm going to call a division. Those in favour?
Is this the amendment? We haven't actually discussed the whole thing yet.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what is being voted on now is what is typed plus an additional condition, number 9, that reads that the owner be asked to consider removal of the container currently on the property.
So we can actually speak against this whole thing now.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the debate has been closed on the motion, and therefore there is no further. It is the matter needs to be put to the council for a vote.
What's the point of order? Stand up.
I think the point of order is that once the shed was built, you could not remove the container. It'd be physically impossible.
But the general manual, read it again, that item number 9 is consider the owner to consider moving the container.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have to say I don't know how it is a point of order. A point of order is on how the meeting procedures are being conducted. What was stated was that the point of order was because the container may not be able to be removed when the shed is constructed. That is a problem for the developer, not a matter of order in the debate.
No, Councillor Moore, so
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I thought we were discussing the amendment that Councillor North was putting about considering. I don't think we've discussed whether we actually agree with the shed. I haven't been given the opportunity to speak against the construction of that shed.
Councillor Morse, you did have the opportunity.
We've just been discussing another amendment.
No, we discussed your amendment, then
Yeah.
I moved to the original proposal here,
And now we've had another
and it was
one.
moved by Councillor North and Christians in the first place.
But now Councillor North has added another amendment, which we have just discussed.
Agreed.
And then it became the amendment.
So please sit down.
So
Excuse me, we'll move on. I'm asking for call it a division. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Right, we go to number 5, modification of DA 2018367.
Mr. Mayor, can I just for the
Sorry.
purposes of the debate, that was a 4-4 vote and you've carried it. So I just need to clarify you've used your mayoral vote to pass the item.
So,
It just needs
well,
to be.
we'll go around again. Who were for?
Mr. Mayor, at this stage, yes, were councillors Orban, Burke, Christian, and North, and the noes were councillors Fry, Hanger, Morse, and Rudge. Now that's okay. I just need to make sure that it's clear in the minutes and everything that the vote comes through. You've carried it. That you've used your second vote as the mayor to carry the DA.
That'll be okay then. Right, we'll move on to modification DA 2018/367. Of Howard Street, moved Councillor North, Councillor Fry. Any discussion? There's no discussion, then I'll call a division. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We go to number 6, development application 2019/361, demolition of 2 existing dwellings. Owner J. Massar and applicant Rawson Communities. Please have a minute. Councillor North, Councillor Orban. Any discussion? Councillor North.
Yeah, a gentleman who lives right next door to us, unfortunately due to a heart condition, he's been in Sydney. He's lived there for a long time, and the connection to the back is via battle axe. I spoke to the director about it. He was concerned because he's got a lot of mobility problems. And I assured him that if it's a right of way, that it cannot be blocked. With this sort of thing, with the development, potentially more vehicles going down there, can there be signage, or is signage allowed to be, or on the ground that make sure that cars don't park there, stop there, that they've got to go through to the back block? But that's what he's concerned about, that he might come home one day and he can't get in the back, and he has very severe mobility issues. So I just wondered, is there something that we can make sure that's adhered to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we can look at that. Off the cuff, I wouldn't be able to describe exactly what the signs would be and their placement, nor might they might not carry legal enforcement, being a right of way. So there'd be advisory, and of course the rule of law is that the right of way can't be obstructed. That doesn't mean people won't park there. Through Mr. Mayor, with your consideration, we'll put our minds to how best to address that.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? There's no discussion, then I'll call a division. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We go to number 7, development application 2020/95, additions and alterations to the Oxford Hotel. Could I please have a movement, Councillor Orban?
Could I make an amendment, please, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Could I change the recommendation that says that council defer determination pending submission of a parking study that demonstrates adequate parking can be provided on the premises for this development?
I have a seconder to that. Councillor
Yes.
Hanger? Right. Okay. Any discussion? Councillor Orban?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I realise there is certain things that have to be done and protocols that carry to do parking spaces and with contributions from developers. And I understand that has to be done. But what I see in this circumstance is there's a one size fits all, and that's the rule that's applied through planning, which I don't think is right. And I find that especially for a hospitality area zone like this particular one, people don't drive to it. People catch a taxi or people walk. There's not that necessity for that much parking in a place like this. If this was an accommodation DA, then I would say yes, because people drive their cars to stay at accommodation places. If it was Shopping centre, same thing. People drive their cars in and park. This one I just think is not there. It doesn't, to me, need that many car parks, especially when they're doing additions to this place. Added to that, the fact that, you know, we're coming through some really hard times, and I'd like to think that council is feeling quite generous to allow developments to carry on, to you know, we want to bring people to town to start businesses. We don't want to put up stop signs. So with that in mind, I'd like to, as I said, defer this item to a working party, but allow this one to go on. Just to say, you know, enable this DA and be determined in reasonable time, because if we put it to a working party, it's going to be a couple of months down the track, which is going to put this development way back, which is not fair to the developer. So if we can determine this, as I said, and then give delegation to the director, if that's possible, to determine the outcome of this. Is that okay?
I'll get the director to respond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in respect of considering delegation to myself, my request is that should that study deem that there is less parking spaces and therefore a lesser contribution to the council, and given some history of decisions on that particular site, my preference is it be determined by the council.
But on the opposite foot, it'd be okay to go ahead with you making the decision.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no. If there is debate to be had around the number of spaces that are the subject of a contribution, which is different from council's policy, which I'm obliged to apply, I'd be reporting it to council for determination.
Okay, but yeah, just let's go on this one and see if the applicant will actually provide a parking study, and that will then lend us to see if we're in the ballpark, or we, as you said, we have to come back and make more discussions. Thank you.
Councillor North.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Orban. I fully agree, and like the discussions we've had, and I guess the times we're in have probably made us think about things a bit different. But the fact that we've got to look at is the policy in place. Is the policy in place we've got? So, to me, when I read this, and I found out since that a terminology of a word tavern is relates to the fluid, the alcohol, and the food, rather than a hotel is accommodation. And you're right, it's one size fits all. And this council, as Councillor Orban, remember when we did LEP, we fought hard on the state government. I think we're one of the last ones in the state, because we wanted to change a few of that fits all policies. And I think one of the things was garages, if I remember correctly, but we held out on. So look, I'd like to make sure part of this working party is that it is very clear that we need to look at our policy, the word within our policy in the DCP, that when we talk in hospitality, it needs to be identified. If accommodation is part of it, you need parking. If it's something where which I've only found out recently, a tavern, it is not something with accommodation, so the rules of what's got to be done by the licensee is different. But this working party, Councillor Orban, we actually look at our policy, our DCP, that we have it in motion. So the rules are there, that we can make it clear to people that we acknowledge what the business they're running and what the requirements they are, because I think in this day and age, people are starting to understand that do the right thing. And I don't think there's anyone here who probably, if they go for a drink, but they would get a taxi or walk home. So I think it's got merit, but we don't want to hurry it through, but we've got to get this right, because it has ramifications if we don't do it properly. But I think it needs to be considered very seriously.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor North. And all I'll say on it is, you know, the one fits all is policy needs to be looked at on this. But we don't want to hold this up either, that we have someone who is a business person wanting to go ahead and improve his business, especially through COVID-19. I think the working party, I'll ask the general manager or the director to say, can it be the next item on our working party, and what's the time frame?
Mr. Mayor, yeah, I'd say it won't, and the reason being the time frame is how quick the developer does his traffic study. There's no point us holding. This is what you're talking about with this one, or you just want to do as general? Overall policy.
Councillor Fry.
I'd like to speak to support Councillor Orban's amendment if he could consider broadening the scope of the study to look at available car spaces within, say, a 1 block radius of the hotel. It's called a hotel, which would include car spaces that are used through the day, when the Oxford isn't requiring them, and at night time these car spaces are empty, when possibly the Oxford could utilise those car spaces and under a commercial agreement. So I'm not here to make commercial agreements for people, but I'd like to consider that they look at having an agreement with owners of car spaces within a 1 block radius.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Director just got an answer here.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly happy to bring some discussion to working party over the numerical standards in the code, and that it should be reflecting contemporary use of these premises. But that will take time, and hence the proposal from Councillor Orban that there be a study put forward by the proponent, a site-specific study, I think will enable the determination to be brought forward in reasonable time. That pathway has always been available to any developer. If the numerical standard doesn't fit for whatever reason, they can always come to council with evidence to suggest it doesn't, and indeed that offer was always on the table with this particular project as well. In regard to Councillor Fry's suggestion, council could consider the provision of parking on someone else's land, that be private land rather than the public street or public car park, but that would need to be a watertight deal, effectively in perpetuity, because the subsequent property dealings could damage those agreements.
Councillor Christian.
Yeah, just a question first up. The money that's paid for these car parking spaces by private business, is that money solely there to help us with projects in the future in regards to car parking spaces, and only for that purpose?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. Any developer contribution under a condition of consent, section 711, the old section 94, is required to be kept by council in trust for the purpose it was collected for. And that, in this case, is for council to build additional parking capacity.
Very good. I too would like to support Councillor Orban's words. We do need to get this right. I'd like to have a look at the whole policy again. You know, it feels like we're penalising business for the betterment of their establishment and doing more with their establishments. I think particularly now at the moment we're in uncertain times. I think maybe some COVID measures may be appropriate, but that's certainly something for a working party to discuss. But again, I think it's very important to note that the Oxford Tavern or Oxford Hotel, it is sort of a nightlife establishment. People go there for dinner and drinks and for whatever else. So I certainly believe at that time of night, you don't have a lot of other cars parked there. I mean, I drive past there quite often on a Friday and Saturday night, and there's really no cars to be seen. So I think that has to be taken into consideration. I mean, the hospitality industry has copped an absolute flogging in the last 6 or 7 months, and to have to fork out, over $200,000 or whatever it is, it's a serious hit. So I'd like to get this right. I do respect what the Director of Planning says, that if council does a report or they do a report, it could come back as a larger number. But I mean, I just don't think that'll happen. I think most people get taxis, and so I'd just like to have a look at the whole policy because $18,000 for a car park space, just to me, seems a bit full on.
Okay, is there any more discussion, councillors? Councillor Morse.
Is it possible just to change the wording of 4 to imply that that can be negotiated, something along the lines, the payment to council of a contribution in accordance with council section 94 at the CBD car parking can be negotiated depending on a parking plan? Would that meet everybody's satisfaction and allow the development to go ahead? It's been an interesting change from a student hangout to much more of a family atmosphere, and I think it's a shame that we don't support this move. And I think if we word item 4 somewhat differently, we could negotiate it.
Just councillor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Given that the outcome of that negotiation is unknown, I'd be recommending to council that it not be included as a consent, a notice of determination. If I may, Mr. Mayor, at the risk of throwing another rock in the pond, but there is another pathway, and that is you determine it with that contribution, and the applicant seeks a review with that parking study to show otherwise.
Any more discussion? Councillor Orban, you have the right of reply.
Thanks, and I'll make it quick, Mr. Mayor. It's just I think everyone's feeling the same way on this one. Is that possibly it's a little bit over the top with the contributions for the developer, but I understand with the $18,000 per car space, and that's a blanket rule. But we do need to go back and look at who has to pay for what car spaces should be made available for different type of industry. So that's the thing I want to nut out. And as I said, we want to encourage business to come to the city, and we want to encourage people to make their businesses better. And I think if we can not put this developer back a couple of months, but actually put it back on him or them to actually get a parking study done from a professional to do this number count, that will keep them going on their development. And how it comes back, I mean, that's up in the air. But honestly, for a hotel establishment as that, I doubt very much where the car parks will have to be made available, because no one drives there, as has been said. So with that, we'll leave that as is and get this parking report done.
So as your amendment, or
Yes, we're doing
my amendment.
you're not doing what the director said?
no.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion I have for consideration is that council defer determination of DA 2020/95 pending submission of a parking study that demonstrates adequate parking can be provided on the premises, and call a division.
So is that a deferral? Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Right, we go to development application number 8. Here, shed at 6 Ironbark Close, Kelso. Applicant T. Moore, owner S. Buckley and T. Moore. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor North. Seconder Councillor Orban. Any discussion? There's no discussion. Councillor Orban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I say bloody sheds? I have brought it up before, and I understand it has been time poor to get working parties happening, but we need to sit down and go over these bloody sheds, because they are becoming a pain. And these sort of things probably shouldn't come through here, but I guess the way it is, that they do have to be discussed in open council. So but if we can bring on that working party to do with sheds, sooner rather than later, that would be much appreciated by all.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. We'll move on. Is there any more discussion? Councillor Rudge?
I agree with Councillor Orban. I just think these sheds are becoming an issue. As I said to the director the other day when we were discussing this, you're looking at bathrooms, sinks and benches in the sheds. These sheds are huge, like they're big enough to house 2 caravans and 4 cars. I mean, this is in a residential area. I feel for the neighbours, I feel for the situation that they find themselves in, and I also understand the situation that council are in, that we are bound by regulations that we have to abide by. Yeah, bring it on. It isn't acceptable in my mind. It causes me to look at the usage of the shed for various uses. And I don't. This doesn't sit comfortable with me, but I understand the situation that we find ourselves in. We really can't do much about it until we look at this and have this working party and look at various ways in which we can approach this with our shed situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor North?
Yeah, I'll take a little bit different view as a councillors. Something that, again, we talk about this city growing, and a few councillors tonight have said, we want to be doors open to bring businesses into town. And going back, 80, 100 years, people back then, probably have chook sheds and had all these other sheds in town. Do we want those in town now? No. The city has got to move with the times, and one of the things to move with the times is sheds. Councillors, it's part of our policy. Okay, we've got to run it at the moment. But if a person has got a right that they want to move to Bathurst, they move to Bathurst, they look it up and they think, if I buy in this area, this wonderful land, whether it's council land or someone else's, you know what, I can do that shed. We're talking about a changing climate where people are working maybe more from home. All things are changing in our life. And if part of your life and you're working on it, you want to create a future, is you want to create that house. It might be big, it might be small. You want a shed down the back. You want that. What makes us different? We are all different. We run by codes, we run by rules. And the fact of the matter is, at the moment, and I agree with Councillor Orban, is if someone puts really a compliant consent, and I saw nothing in this one, nothing that went against our code, to what I understand they've dug down to reduce the height, is that, do we want to say you can build a house, you can have a little garden shed and that's it? It was said by the council next to me, are we supposed to be looking in everyone's backyards, and tell them what they can and can't do? People are coming to our city, people are changing their lives, and young couples are looking, they've got this house first, they want to buy a block of land and that, and the husband's got his ute and he's got his boat and all that, and he wants his bigger shed. These are the codes we're living by. Yes, we've got to look at them. I'm frustrated by these ones that are coming to us when they fully comply. That's where my frustration is, because I would like confidence that people can come into this council. Can I do this? Yep, the code says it. Yep, you do this. They bring in the documentation. They've done it all. Our inspectors come out, which they have regular reviews on when the concrete's put down and everything else. They comply. We're dealing with people's lives. We're dealing with something that's allowable. We've got to be very careful. This is a council that, as I said earlier, that the LEP, we fought the state government. I think we're one of the last ones in the state, because we said we're Bathurst. We're very different. Our culture, our history, our modern aspects of this city, we want to be unique. We didn't want the state government to tell us how this is a box, you work away in that box. Let's look at our rules, but be aware, councillors, as councillors, you run it by a set of rules, and surely you'd think if you went and did something, whatever it was, and you complied with every single rule, why is it someone can come back and say, I don't want you to do it? If it was happening to you, you'd be really annoyed. Everything in this is being approved. So if there's things that aren't kosher, yes, bring it before us. But when it's all said and done, our staff are very well qualified. They know what they're doing. You know, did I want units put next to me years ago? There was 2 there, and then there was 4. There was 2 cars there. Now there's 8 or 10 come out of there all the time. But it's allowable, so I live with it. You know, second nature now. It's been there for years. But you know, it's part of the times. If it's allowable, you know, councillors, we've got to think about that.
Well, thank you, Councillor North. No, he had the right of reply, and he's finished. I did ask Councillor Morse for any discussion.
I'm just amazed at just closing down discussion all evening.
No, I have not. Councillor North was the mover of the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. I really did not hear that, Mr. Mayor, and I feel I've not had the opportunity.
Well, I'll give you the opportunity. There you go.
I understand that everybody has the right to build great big sheds in their garden if it complies. But there's also, we're talking about encouraging people to come to Bathurst. You buy a nice house in whatever street it is, but beware, you can have a great big shed next to you. And we should have more understanding of people's rights to have what they've bought in the first place. They buy a house and suddenly there's a big shed next door. And I know Councillor North says encourage business to come to Bathurst, encourage development, build houses, but warn them they're going to have a big shed next door because council's approved it.
Thank you, Councillor North. Now, finish off again, if you like, Councillor North, to that response.
No, Will, because I was going to go point of order because that's not code of meeting practice. You've just actually said it, Councillor Morse. A person should have a right, if they buy a block of land, what they can do on there. So a person that wants a shed hasn't got the right, but a person that has a block of land that don't want a shed has the right. You've just said it yourself. They should have a surety that they could come in, and this is what I'm about. We then need, as councillors, to look at our policy and say, okay, they can't be over this size. If they're a corner block, they can't be situated here. They can't come in. Look, well, councillors, let's get down in that working party and do that. But you've just said it yourself. If I want to go and buy a block of land and I want to put a shed on it, I want to know, and I'll go to the planning people and sit there or stand there and talk to them and say, what can I have? And this is exactly what these people are doing, exactly what you said, Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Councillor North. Now I'm going to put the motion there and call a division.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the motion is as printed.
As printed. Right. Now I'll call a division. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 9, Doors Open campaign update. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor North, Councillor Chris. Is there any discussion, Councillor Hanger? No. Councillor Morse? Any discussion? Any other councillor? Okay, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now we go to Director of Corporate Services and Finance Report. Statement of Investments. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Fry, Councillor Orban. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion. Then I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 2, the monthly review and operational plan. Can I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Morse, Councillor Orban. Is there any discussion? There's no discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour, those against, carried. Oh, we have a frog in the room. Now we go to item number 3, sundry section 356 donations, Bathurst Memorial Entertainment Centre. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Christian, Councillor North. Is there any discussion? Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question. Do we still have 28,000 in the Mount Panorama subsidy? Is that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion, councillors? There's no discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 4, power of attorney. Can I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Orban. Councillor Fry. Any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Number 5, request for refund of application fees, retaining wall at lot 239 DP 750357 Conrod Street. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Fry, Councillor Orban. Any discussion? There's no discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 6, COVID-19 for sporting events. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor North, Councillor Christians. Any discussion? Councillor North. You were up first, Councillor North.
Look, I actually raised this issue with the Sport and Rec Council, and this month it was good to have a report that was going to come before us. And the previous month, because I was bitterly disappointed by social media and the rants and raves by people who did not know what they were doing, and some of the reporting that took place on it, that it'd be quicker to find out what's going on, as councillors would be aware now with the great race and everything that our staff are going through. If protocols aren't kept, it isn't going to go ahead. If they don't feel the protocols are right, it doesn't go ahead. And it was good to see that people got to understand, as much as we are the Bathurst Regional Council and we are the councillors that represent the people of Bathurst, but I saw an email today that, you know, if it's a council-owned land and we've leased it out to an organisation to use and have for years, but they know by their associations and council have passed on to them that you need to get the New South Wales health authority public health orders in place. So I'm really pleased you put this out there, and I hope we push it so people understand that if something takes place, they've got every right to ask that organisation, have you got these measures in place? But before you criticise on social media and media, have an understanding first what it's all about. And it blew me away at that time as some of the events that went on before that weekend, it was hundreds of people here and no one had any idea, and the town survived. So social media is extremely dangerous.
Thank you, Councillor North. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this was raised because of groups coming up from Sydney. And there was conflict because the people in Bathurst couldn't go and watch their own children play soccer, but all these groups were coming up from Sydney, which on the Facebook page, I agree that it was big on social media, that they all came up to Bathurst, didn't quite know where from, whether it was a hot spot, and then they all went shopping in town. I don't know whether they did or they didn't, but they actually said on Facebook that they did go shopping. And the community were very concerned that there were a lot of people coming up from Sydney, hotspots potentially, and then going shopping, but they couldn't go and watch their own children play soccer. So there was a little bit of a conflict there. And I think that council needs to put this out to the public that it's not our decision whether they bring bus loads of soccer players to Bathurst or other games too. It's not just soccer, but that was the one that started it off. And of course, people are now worrying about the race, if it happens and what happens when people come. Should it be only for 2795 postcodes? So I think it's really important that council gets its message, and maybe Councillor North knows what the rules are about who can go and watch their children or grandchildren playing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Councillor Hanger.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, with this particular incident, I went out, as possibly Councillor North did too. One parent, one player. And that's all the people that came from Sydney. The argy-bargy that carried on that weekend was just ridiculous, as has been said. There was not a coach. There was not a coach load of people from Sydney. There was one bus out there and guess where the bus came from? And I've said this before, Scots All Saints College, a local organisation. Other people came up in cars with their child. One parent, one child is allowed to go. One parent is allowed to go here to watch their children play. Grandparents can't, grandparents and other people can't. Still, people aren't allowed to go in holus bolus to watch. And I think the Bathurst District Football, who was the they weren't the organisers, New South Wales Football was, but Bathurst District Football did everything in there correctly, absolutely everything. The ball was wiped at the end of all of this sort of business happened, and this is going to be the new norm in a lot of ways. But I applaud the people out at Bathurst District Football on this weekend. I don't think there's been a complaint since. And of course, we don't know how many people came to Bathurst last weekend or the weekend before or the weekend before. There might have been 50 people came from a hot spot in Sydney. Do we know that? No, we don't. If they went to soccer after the football, they were tested. Had to fill out business. And if they went shopping after that, at least they'd been tested. We don't know who came to Bathurst last weekend, sorry. We don't know who came to Bathurst last weekend. So I applaud this and well done to all the local sporting organisations, not only football, but rugby league, netball, hockey are doing the same. I know there's a hockey grand final in Lithgow on the weekend, and I can't go and watch somebody go and play. I can stand outside the fence, but I can't go in and watch it. So, I think the protocols, the sporting organisations are to be applauded for the work that they've done to make sure they don't want COVID to come through. They're the last people that want COVID to come through, so they do everything in their power to make sure that it doesn't. So I applaud this one.
Thank you, Councillor Hanger. And can I say I fully agree with what you said, but why this item is on the agenda here tonight is because most of you councillors were concerned about the message that wasn't getting out there. It was put onto myself as the mayor and through the deputy mayor to get a message out there, and the message is now the protocols, and I applaud the council's input into that. So that's what we're doing here tonight, to make sure that message does get out there where it was not a bus load, and get the right message out there. So we'll continue on, Councillor. Any other councillor like to discuss it? You can finish off, Councillor North.
Yeah. And well said, Councillor Hanger, is that this is right. And one thing that we do know that the sporting bodies and arts and culture, all our groups are doing the right thing. And I've said it, I think, twice before, and I'm going to say this again. I was bloody frustrated that we were so proud of the fact that 9,000 people visited our museums. 9,000 over 2 weeks. Not a peep, not a story that went into paper to say what have they brought, where they're from. We brought a report in the council, and I raised it in front of everyone in here. 61% of Sydney metro area, 58% in this one from Sydney metro. That because of the protocols that places have been put in place, the mayor, the general manager, our directors, and no doubt the councillors, they're talking to their friends and colleagues in other sports and groups, we are doing the right thing. And I would encourage everyone here, is the protocols is there, but if you hear something, don't go onto the social media. Encourage the mayor and council to respond, whether it's on our own website or whatever. But rest assured, I didn't actually go in that day out there because I had no reason to be there, so I didn't go in. But I spoke to the people in charge. I said, "What are you doing?" And from cleaning the ball to regularly cleaning every handle all the time. I think it was a couple of staff, Councillor Hanger, all day out there, volunteers, sorry, not staff, were just cleaning everything all the time. So I'm really happy you had to do that, but it's also extremely sad we've had to do that because people, and I'm sorry, shoot their mouths off and they don't know what they're talking about. But, the groups in Bathurst have done a wonderful job. Sports, the arts, everything have done a wonderful job. And we're in a good position here because we are doing our social distancing, and our business and sporting bodies are adhering. And what Councillor Hanger said is right. It's a shame that we've got a Bathurst team in the Women's Premier League, and the players have got to be ready before they get there. You can't get changed there. all these protocols. You can't take a bag. You've got your hockey stick. You've seen the hockey people. All these things, and everyone is following it. So it's a shame we've got to do that, but we might have to just keep reiterating when anyone's on radio to say, hey, there is a protocol and we are following it.
Thank you, Councillor North. I'll end that now. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those are carried. Number 7, update of delegation register. Could I please have a move and a second? Councillor Orban, Councillor North. Any discussion? No discussion. Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 8, Code of Conduct. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Christian, Councillor North. Is there any discussion? Councillor Christian.
Only that I think it's excellent. It certainly streamlines the process, and it only sort of deals with the more serious issues that warrant disciplinary action or misconduct. So I think it's, I think it's very appropriate, and it streamlines the situation, takes all the rubbish out of it, and I think it's good.
Thank you, Councillor Christian. Is there any more discussion? No more discussion. Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Statement by Council on financial reports. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Morse, Councillor Hanger. Any discussion? No discussion. Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 10, request for financial assistance, Bathurst District Cricket Association. Move Councillor. Yes.
That councillors would be aware that we actually, through a Mayoral Minute, have actually already voted on this. If you had a look at it, yep, Councillor Morse has got it. So could we change it where A says that council note that gardens and active spaces community group user fees for the Cricket Association have been waived in the Mayoral Minute. So we've already done it, so I guess it's a tick and flick, but we need to do the proper process.
Right. We don't need to read that out, do we? No. Okay. I got a mover. It's Councillor North. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Christians. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 11, request for financial assistance, Early Start Kelso Preschool and Family Centre. Please have a mover. Slight change, Councillor North.
Can we move a recommendation that I believe that the actual figure that's required, talking to the Director of Corporate Service and Finance, is 25,000, not 33, roundabout. That council support the request by way of a loan over 5 years, which basically means the Early Start Preschool would be paying $100 a week. The council is the loan giver, and it's over a 5-year period.
Can I have a seconder to that? Councillor Fry. Is there any discussion? Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really concerned about this because I'm not sure of the circumstances as why they have to pay these contributions. I would like to ask why this has come about, if I could have a report from the Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the reason it's come about, they've got to pay this money, which they say is the council fees and charges, is because they're a developer like anyone else and they have to pay the appropriate charges. It's the same as when we did our develop on Scallywags. We paid for it ourselves, and I think, if memory serves me, but I'm not sure, but I'll check with Councillor North, when the Jenny's Childcare Centre went in, they asked about a waiving of their fees and they had to pay them because they're the appropriate fees and charges that are levied on people when they do developments.
I understand there is normally, but I thought that there'd be an error made by one of the people involved in this construction.
Well,
can I say, Mr. Mayor, someone making an error in their construction is not a reason for the council to be giving them a donation.
Is there any more discussion?
Mr. Mayor, could I just check?
I've just checked. Is there any more discussion with the councillors? There's no, yes, General Manager.
Councillor North, could I just suggest that the final wording be that council make available a $25,000 loan to the Early Start Kelso Preschool and Family Centre over a 5-year period in accordance with council's donations section 356 policy, because that policy has a specific section on making loans available to community group sporting organisations.
No, that's it, Monica. I just asked Councillor North to close, and he just had a clarification on. Righto.
It's just that I think we should give some support to this particular group of people. We used to support them when they had a preschool in Lee Street in Kelso. They actually provide services for disadvantaged little preschoolers. It's not a childcare centre, it is a preschool for disadvantaged children. And I was talking to one of the volunteers, and they bus the children in because they don't have transport. The families are really very badly disadvantaged. And the volunteer that I spoke to was actually a man, and he said that the children there find it difficult to relate to men because in their experience, men are always the one that hit them. So it's a very special preschool, and it doesn't do childcare for people who want to go out to work. It's a preschool for disadvantaged children, and we've, as a council, have supported them for some years when it was in Lee Street. And yes, I know that they are bound to pay all these fees, but if there is some way that we can help them out over the next few years, I think it would be really good, because they are really underprivileged kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Now, we're going to put it, you want to close it? Yeah, go.
Councillor Morse, that is exactly what I'm doing, because it was before, I think it was before COVID hit, we opened up a reservoir out Lime Kilns, and I think it was nearly $12 million. We have an issue that we don't have anymore around about up the top end of town. I won't say its name. We put contributions away so in the future we can make improvements to our city. What this group does is wonderful. We are offering a solution that in my many years here, I've never made this offer. I've never brought it up, and I can't think, and the Mayor will correct me if we've ever done it, that I spoke to the General Manager, I spoke to the Director of Corporate Service and Finance, and I got him in trouble with his wife because I didn't realise how late it was, that we are offering help. If you're talking $100 a week, if preschool, that's $20 a day, and allowing them to be able to build the facility they want with the money. And what was said before, if someone has made a mistake, it's not our mistake. The charges, and any builder knows, any builder in Bathurst would know what council charges to hook in for new premises. So it's not an unknown. Maybe they've been caught out because maybe they weren't told, but that's not our worry. But what our worry is, they've come to us. I was looking around for a solution how to go, and that was the best one I could come up with. And the director said, yes, we can do that and make it available to them. And I personally think it's a great solution. And that group, and Councillor Morse, you should be aware, I used to manage 2 PCYCs many years ago from kids that required support, and that the work the police did was remarkable. And those kids had trouble with the men and women in blue. But the idea of that was to get them to understand they are wonderful people. So there's so many great organisations out there that do a wonderful job. As I said, this is the first time I know we've done this, and I hope council does support it.
Okay, now I'm going to put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We go to Director Engineering Services report. Water security update. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Orban. Councillor Christians. Is there any discussion? Councillor Christian.
Only just echoing what I said a month ago. It's just such a fantastic report. It just outlines how much this council's done. It's truly spectacular, actually. I mean, every single column here is completed. We have done so much, and I think the Director of Engineering, Darren Sturgis, and his staff deserve a huge rap for this. Things got really, really serious there for a while, and I think some people out in the community just don't know how serious things were. But you guys never wavered. You just kept pushing through, pushing through, pushing through. We came up against a lot of frustrations with the state government, and just seeing what we've been able to accomplish is really, really impressive. I'd also like to congratulate the community. Their effort was just sensational also. Everybody banded together and did the right thing. And I understand that we may have just gone a little bit past 98% in the dam as of today or yesterday. So it's just fantastic. We were really worried there for a while, but like Councillor Orban and I were banging on about for quite some time, guess what happened? It magically rained again. So I'm not sure if the climate's gone back to where it's supposed to be or not. I don't know what's going on there. But we're nearly back to 100%, and it's just so important that we do the right thing to preserve the water we've got. Because, you know, I know there are a few issues with irrigators and stuff like that, but we have to be really careful because nobody wants to see us back in the position that we were in earlier this year. So congratulations to all involved.
Thank you, Councillor Christian. Councillor Orban.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, just everything that Councillor Christian just said, have to back that up. Can I also say that I have had a lot of dialogue with people in the streets just saying, can we keep the water restrictions at level 3 as they are now? Everybody's used to having the restrictions that they had on them for the last 12 months. You know, a level 3 seems like a breath of fresh air. So if we can manage it with that level and keep it going over summer especially, I think we'll be in a really good place. And yes, the climate cycle has come around that it's rained again. Sensational.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Is there any more discussion? Councillor Fry.
Yeah, look, I broadly agree with the sentiments in the room, except the climate, possibly. The groundwater studies, I believe, have all been completed, and we did pull some information out that 50 or 100 years ago, there was a lot of groundwater available from various sources around the region, the Bathurst Basin. Did the groundwater report show up there's a decline in groundwater, or there's not much available, or is it saline, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the groundwater investigations that we have done as part of our security of water projects indicated that certainly that the quantity of water was reasonably low. We are going through further proposals at this stage in terms of further investigation, but certainly the overall quantity of groundwater in with respect to the amount that Bathurst requires was reasonably low.
Thank you, Director. Is there any more discussion? Councillor North.
Yeah, I've got a little different tact. On bottom of page 117, 150 of Stormwater Ponds next to Proctor Park, stage 1B, costed on hold. Now, what we've now achieved in a very short time, but thank you, Mother Nature, for raining upon our parade, and the great work, as Councillor Orban and Christian have said, and Councillor Fry, that our staff have done a wonderful job to get to this point. Is that something that is on hold because maybe that is not a requirement moving down the future, but that pond will be needed there, but what we have got within our water treatment works and what we have room for in the future might be a much more cost-effective, sustainable way to go?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in short, yes, that's correct. We are reviewing the most cost-effective way that we can deliver the water security projects. The design is basically been finalised with environmental assessment reviews being carried out by the state government with some refinement of that data. Once that's considered by the state government and approved, we will then consider, or there will be a requirement for further public consultation as to the project details. and that will potentially include or not the ponds at Proctor Park, subject to the approvals that we will have in place for the project. So we are looking at the most cost-effective way of spending the taxpayer and the ratepayer money.
So the rain that's occurred has given us a bit of room to move, and we're not as pointed to get things moving as quick. The other thing too, I would like to see, I'm not sure if it's Councillor Orban or Christian that said it, the irrigators, vital part of this community for what they produce. You know, all councillors would be fully aware that there was at peak times we'd have to pump 150 megs down the river to get 25 at our water treatment work. I'd like to see another column added into this and council start working on it, and councillors to consider we look at putting money away. 2006 or 8, I think it was, the study into the pipeline, and we were talking about around about 55 to 58,000 people who would become cost effective, and we've done a lot of the work. But we're now, if it's 2008, I've got the right date, we're now 12 years down the track. Where are we at with the pipeline? And based on discussions I've had with you, it sounds that we need to nearly start at square one. No, we've done a lot of work, which I guess helps us moving forward. I would like to see a column in here to do that, because I think moving forward, we've got greater chance to get a pipeline in place quicker to assure the Bathurst community the water they need to go forward, and for us to better manage the water. And I think it might be a discussion we can have, I'm not sure if it's NRA or who it is, to how we manage the water flow going down the river to support our irrigators. So is it potential we can get a extra column in here? Is it midterm we had that pipe, or long term? I would like to see the work on that, and councillors, we need to start putting money away for that study, because we are back to square one, aren't we?
Through Mr Mayor, certainly there has been money set aside over the years for improvements to the investigations we've done on the pipeline proposal from Chifley Dam, and some of that certainly was in last year's budget, which has, dare I say, been utilised in the current planning for the alternate projects that we're dealing with. The status of the original study done in 2008, there have been a number of legislative changes since that time. And so whilst that's a good grounding for further work, there is considerable work for approvals for a pipeline from Chifley, including consultation with irrigators, various state government agencies and the like. So it will take a number of years to resolve.
So the question is, can we start having that added into our column here, and can we start, as a matter of urgency, start investigating?
Yes, we can add it. Council will need to consider funding that in next financial year's budget.
And could, just to the director, what would be the cost of the pipeline, probably realistic now?
In today's dollars, I'd have to consider you'd be over $50 million for a pipeline from Chifley. Yes, that was 12 years ago. And since that time, there's been a change of legislation, including biodiversity offsets and the like.
Councillor Orban?
A quick question, Mr Mayor, and 25% rings a bell, but what percentage of savings of water would we get by installing a pipeline from Chifley into town?
Through Mr Mayor, difficult to put a percentage on it given that analysis hasn't been done. It would depend upon losses, the time of the year of the transmission and the actual irrigation use. So to put a percentage on it right now would be very difficult, but certainly there would be potentially savings from that. However, we would still no doubt need to run the river as well from environmental flow reasons too. So it's not as simple as putting in a pipeline and using that water alone.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Councillor Christian?
Yeah, probably putting the Director of Finance in the hot spot here. This is a question without notice, but how much water may we have lost, how much income have we lost from the lack of sale of water that we would have normally had under usual circumstances?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm going to have to take that question on notice. I don't have that information with me this evening.
Council, any other discussion? No discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Right, we go to Director of Cultural and Community Services report. Bathurst Rail Museum 6 months update. A mover and a seconder. Councillor North, Councillor Christian. Is there any discussion? Put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Number 2 is review of the family daycare educate advances policy. Please have a mover and a seconder. Councillor North, Councillor Orban. Any discussion? There's no discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 3, destination brand implementation and destination management plan or quarterly report. Please have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Orban, Councillor Hanger. Is there any discussion? Question?
Like since the destination brand and we've been getting regular reports, again, okay, we're using that word COVID-19, is it's clear that as this country comes out of this COVID-19 situation, that everyone is going to be saying, come to our city, come to our town. Is there had any discussion in, I guess, the cultural community section or the directors in council to how we can look at that moving forward? Is it like a new line item? Because I'll tell you what, everyone out in Australia has been, once we know we're clear, we get that vaccine, our doors are open. Come and help our city, our town, our village thrive. Is there any other considerations within these reports yet? We're doing a wonderful thing, great usage. We're starting to think outside the square, council.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 9, reports of other committees. Traffic Committee report, 1st of September. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Orban, Councillor Morse. Any discussion? If no discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We do have a notice of motion. Number 10, Local Health District and Bathurst Health Services by Councillor Orban. Would you like to speak to that? Have a seconder? Councillor North.
I'd love to speak to that, Mr Mayor. Okay, so everybody's got in front of them points that I've raised in this notice of motion, and I would ask for the support from my fellow councillors to this notice of motion. It's been a long 18 months since I've formed the Hospital Action Group, and we knocked down some fairly substantial doors, but we find ourselves in a position where we bang our heads against a wall. It's just we just keep getting fed the same response from the management and the heads of the health group around here. So what I want to do with this notice of motion is put the Western Health District on notice that we are not happy with the way that Bathurst is being treated. We are not happy with the dispersion in funds between Dubbo, Orange and Bathurst, which leaves Bathurst the poor cousin when it comes to health services. We started this group to try and elevate the number of medical services available at our hospital, and I mean we are still in the realms of having 1.5 anaesthetists running a base hospital. This is a ridiculous situation. We are still in the situation where we have people with minor ailments getting sent to Orange on a regular basis. We see here a few weeks ago almost the demise of the Daffodil Cottage from poor management. That's all it was, poor management. We got rid of a pharmacist and the place could not function. So these poor people, cancer sufferers, had to be taken to Orange for chemo and other treatments, which is just disgusting. And it should never happen. And I want that put down, that this will never happen. People in Bathurst look to that service as, you know, with contentment, and that they know that we have a service for cancer sufferers in Bathurst. They don't want to be taken to Orange to get that service. And that's one thing that we have to ram home here, is that we need that service here and it has to stay. The other thing that we come across is the local health district is trying to put into place an orthopedic service into Bathurst, what they're calling an emergency orthopedic service, which is more a band-aid solution than anything else. What it is the group of orthopedic surgeons from Orange and Bathurst are banded together into a group of 7, and each of those 7 have to do a week on call at the Orange Hospital. Now, what that means is our resident orthopedic surgeon in Bathurst has to up stumps and go and live in Orange. He has to live in Orange for a week, 1 in 7 weeks. He has to leave his family, has to leave his business. He can't operate in the private hospital or in Lithgow or in Mudgee. He has to be living in Orange for a whole week, 1 in every 7 weeks. I mean, you know, if he doesn't agree to these terms, then basically his contract is torn up at the base hospital and he won't be able to operate in the public system. Now, then they have to replace him. So who's going to come to work in Bathurst under that situation, knowing that they have to work in Orange 1 week in 7? I mean, it is a woeful situation. And then the service that they're offering is very, very limited. The services on the Tuesday and the Thursday will be just basic operations. There's no aftercare, so there's no joint replacements, there's no major work that can be done. It's just very basic operations. And the doctor that does that operation this week is not here next week to do follow-up on the patients. So there's no care, aftercare. It's woeful.
I've just said an extension of time there. Councillor Christian, Councillor North.
We need to demand as a council for the people of Bathurst who deserve a service better than what they're getting. We need this service. A 24/7 emergency orthopedic surgeon service is needed in this city. We can't be sending people to Orange every weekend for very minor ailments. We need that service board here. Now, the ways that we can do that, there's a line drawn between Bathurst and Lithgow. Lithgow is in the Nepean district, Bathurst in the western area. Okay, if we include the Lithgow population in our area, we could then, with Oberon and the surrounding towns, we could then have enough people to generate a 3rd orthopedic surgeon, which would lead to the 24/7 service being available in Bathurst. That's your orthopedics. So that's where we need to push, and hopefully I've had talks with the Mayor of Lithgow and he's quite happy to have open talks with us and see what we can nut out on that respect. We need to request the government, the New South Wales government, to prepare and publish a long-term capital works plan for the health infrastructure for our region, so that we can be confident in going forward that we have plans to make this hospital better and bigger. We're a growing city. We need to have a better and bigger hospital. We need to have more beds. We need to have more training facilities in our hospital. We need to be able to bring people in to be trained. So we need more beds open. And the only way we're going to do that is to get the management to see Bathurst is a growing city. We need our share of the money pool that's going around every year. We don't need to be the poor cousin. Bathurst needs to be its own hub for healthcare. We've got Orange and Dubbo. As we were told when the CEOs came to this room via Zoom, that we've got 2 hubs in the area. We've got Orange in the south and Dubbo in the north. Yeah, leaves us behind. We need Bathurst to be its own hub as well. So in saying that, that just briefly surmises what I've got written down here. You know, we need to keep pushing with mental health. I know when during COVID, the hospital was running very, very well. And it was done so by the doctors organising the hospital to run that way as they wanted it to be run. It wasn't done by management. That was basically to the demise of the Panorama Clinic, which is the mental health clinic in the hospital. Now, we need to keep pushing forward with that because that is a very vital part of the hospital. And to say that they're going to go and do these home visits and things is just ridiculous. We need a complete mental health unit here in Bathurst as well. So I'll sum up and just say, look, I'd really like your support for this motion. Read through it and you know, we need as a council to demand the Western Health District to listen to these points and take action. We cannot be left behind. We want to progress and let's do that.
Thank you, Councillor Orban, and on myself as Mayor, I fully agree with your notice of motion, and I hope that the rest of the councillors will support this motion when I put it to a motion. So, Councillor Christian?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it's not too late. I mean, it won't make that much of a difference. However, I just considered an amendment before Councillor Orban actually addressed the Panorama Clinic side of things, that either the wording of H change, or we at H stop at the word cottage, and then maybe introduce I where it says commence urgent discussions with the local health district regarding the future of Panorama Clinic. Make it specific. Is that something we can do, or is it basically, are you happy with that in H? I'd just like to be a bit more specific.
Okay, he's willing to take that on board, but Councillor Roach, would you like to say something on that?
Thank you. In recent times, I've been invited as a consumer representative on the Bathurst and Dubbo Subacute Governance Partnership Group in relation to Panorama Clinic. It's important to note that Panorama Clinic will be opening in November and at the very latest January. I'd also like to make a point that there have been subacute beds available during this COVID time, and they have been managing very, very well. And we want to get the message out there that people that are suffering from subacute illnesses can still dial the 1-800 number or contact the emergency department. So really, this area has been covered very, very well. And the Panorama Clinic will be opening either in November and at the very latest January. And I'm on this partnership board, so I can feed back the information to council, and I'm at the coalface of it, and I'm keeping a very good track of what's going on in that space.
For Fry, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Orban's amendment and acknowledge the work he's done here in the 18 months, and it's been critical to advancing these causes. But we can thump the table all we like, but where's our local state member in this, and is he part of the dialogue?
Who would you like to, who are you putting that question to? Oh. Eh? Oh, just a comment. Okay, then. I'll go to Councillor Christian.
Yeah, and just to finish off what I was saying, I certainly agree with this 100%. It's one thing to, beat your head in the media and scream and roar, but it's another thing to actually get something like this together and really push hard for it. So I commend you for that, Councillor Orban. And if the Panorama Clinic, if we're looking for a November, January reopening of that space, then I think that's fantastic. To offer people a contact number, you know, bring up the phone and talk to someone on the phone or go to ED, I think is completely unacceptable. The mental health issues during COVID-19 have obviously been significant, and this amazing clinic had been closed, I believe, because of COVID-19 to create further space. And I mean, the excellent work that health staff do cannot be understated. However, any nurse or any doctor or anyone at a hospital will tell you since COVID-19, they've been twiddling their thumbs in a lot of cases. The hospitals are empty. So I really hope that this space gets reopened up straight away, because I've had a lot of people actually reach out and voice their concerns in regards to Panorama Clinic. And we'll know we fought so hard to keep it open over Christmas, which was a great effort. So I really hope this doesn't get dissolved. And I think if it opens in November or January, which I'll be keeping a very close eye on, I think that's fantastic. Also, I would like to touch on what happened at the Daffodil Clinic. I'm one for voicing my concerns about things on Facebook, and I get great reactions for that. Excuse me, Councillor, is there something you'd like to say?
Excuse me, just continue.
So I've lost my train of thought. People are making noises. The Daffodil Cottage issue. I had over 31 people reached with a post. 31,000 people reached with a post that I put up. I mean, that just shows you how significant and how loved Daffodil Cottage is. And for the mismanagement that Councillor Orban talked about to occur is absolutely putrid. I had phone calls from two ladies stand out, and ironically, they're not from Bathurst. One was from Lithgow and one was from Oberon, and they were in tears on the phone. They could not believe it. So we need to find out, I think the community owed an explanation. What happened there and how was it handled so poorly? I really think heads need to roll. Who's accountable for these decisions, you know, that are being made? It's completely unacceptable. So, Councillor Orban, I think I can speak for all the councillors. I'm directly behind you on this. I think it's fantastic, and it's time we really start shaking the tree. And if we come across bureaucrats or if we come across elected officials that have a ho-hum attitude, then we need to name them and we need to shame them. We need to force people into action. It's all nice to ask and be polite, but I think we're beyond that. So if these bureaucrats and these elected officials don't come up with the goods and give us excuses, then we need to start really twisting arms, I think. So congratulations. I think it's strong, it's direct. It's exactly what we need.
Thank you, Councillor Christian. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with Councillor Orban. He's done a fantastic job promoting Bathurst as a place for good medical services. Just would like to ask him, I guess, what he sees is the next step. Yes, we'll all agree. I'm sure we'll all vote for this. And the other thing I might ask him to consider is Council at the moment is looking at an ageing strategy. And it's well known that a lot of medical services actually used by the older section of the community, older demographic. So perhaps some of this need for the services in Bathurst could be tied in with the ageing strategy too. But I would like to know how we can support this moving on to the next stage.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Councillor North.
Yeah, like everyone in the room here, fully support and endorse it. And I've said in the past that, you know, I jumped onto the health board up there many years ago, was 2 years there and extremely frustrated. We created a group that had CSU, council, state member reps, not only CSU, we had, what's the university that also comes to the hospital? Western Sydney, where it represents all over the place. Councillors, we had just a little bit earlier, we spoke about war security and the wonderful reports and the work we've done. You spoke down to Councillor Orban, you've been together 18 months. I'd like to see your group come into council. I'd like to see a report of council every month, where we're at, what we're doing. Because what Councillor Morse just said, to progress it, they need us. We need to put the pressure on. And look, with respect, I'd like to see that group come in and see us regularly. We haven't seen or met your other members. We need to push this hard. as everyone has had. As I said, I got on the health board, and if you've ever been on the health board, I was extremely frustrated for 2 years, told what I could and couldn't say, and that's not me. So I kept saying what I need to say. We've fought for Daffodil Cottage, I don't know, on 2 or 3 occasions. Should not be doing that. It was said, and Councillor Orban would correct me, I think they said something like 25 or 26% of this increased budget we got went to locums. Why can't we be paying for staff and nurses here? I met some nurses the other week, were from Newcastle. We needed nurses here. We couldn't get nurses from here. Their planning, their budgets are just got a problem. And, when we were given a feedback recently about future directions of the hospital district and what was going to look like and potential private hospital and all that, I walked away thinking, here it is, that's going to be put on the shelf. Where's the money going to come to do it? Where's the commitment to do it? Is it going to be done? Wonderful ideas if it takes place. But Councillor Orban is right. They can talk the talk, not give answers, and that talk the talk is not giving answers. Their politicians really good. I was extremely frustrated on that night they came here, and I think they got the impression, because they said they were happy to take it off air with me, an issue that my mum had a number of years ago. I think it was 5 years ago. She recently went to hospital again, and the same thing happened again. They're not getting the fact. We are saying to them the same things keep happening. So we fully endorse what you're doing, Councillor Orban, but I think it has got to a stage where this group, on a regular basis, what we've done with water, we need a regular monthly update, who you've spoken to, what's going on, what have we done, like we've done with water, we need to do with our health facility. Because one thing we keep talking about here, this city keeps growing, and what's not growing is the support we get for our health facilities. So, and anyone who knows anyone, and I think everyone here would know people that work in the hospital system, know they do an absolutely amazing job and need to be congratulated every single day they walk in there, because what they put up with management is disgusting. The rhetoric, and I'll say it this way, crap that is fed to us, and I can understand Councillor Orban's frustration when people tell him this is going to happen and it just doesn't happen. Why, in a modern city, one of the most important regional areas, not in New South Wales and I'll say Australia, is the Bathurst region, we have a second-rate process of looking after our hospital by management at a senior level. A couple of gentlemen that spoke to us last time, I don't think we got one straight answer. What Councillor Orban expressed to him about the doctor, he has to be on call within 30 minutes. Well, no one can get to Orange in 30 minutes. So they are setting goals.
I'll just stop you and give you an extension of another couple of minutes.
They set things and goals and parameters that cannot be met, but yet the staff are trying to meet them. So, Councillor Orban, whatever support you need, every single councillor here will support you. But I think it's at the stage where we need this group in here. We as a council need to do what we've done with water, regular monthly reports, and we need to let what Councillor Fry said, our state member, our federal member, and any other member and member of Legislative Council, we're important out here and we need support. So we need to start barking on as hard as we can, and I think no better way is every month if we can have a wonderful report here, what's going on with health or what's not going on with health and the struggles that Councillor Orban and his group is having, that we need to support them. So well done, but let's step it up.
Thank you, Councillor North. Would you like to write a reply there now, Councillor Orban?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, some points brought up there. Councillor Morse, moving on. We intend to take this to the top. The Councillor Fry, where was the local member? The local member actually introduced us to the Health Minister, Brad Hazzard, late last year with a delegation, and we went down and saw him. So we're going to ask him to do that again, and we need to take this to the top. The Councillor North, the group to come in, I can't bring the doctors in. The doctors, we have to keep their privacy on this. We're getting fed good information, and that has to stay that way. as you said rightly, that 33% of the workforce at the Bathurst Hospital is locum, which is doing the local economy no favours. So I look at it like Cobar. I've spent a bit of time in Cobar the last couple of years. Cobar is suffering because their population is fly in, fly out. It's the same situation here where they come and they go. They don't stay in the city and spend their money. It disappears outside. That has to be addressed. That has to be addressed. And that is to be addressed by getting new staff and better services. And we've got to encourage people to come here. The toxicity of the workplace up there has to be addressed. The situation in Dubbo, as reported in the Sydney Morning Herald and Current Affair last weekend, is just a disaster. Where there's, I think it was over 2,000 test results that have just been shelved without anyone looking at them when patients have come back for follow-up treatment. There was the death of a baby girl included in that. So, I mean, look, we don't need that sort of thing happening here. And so I was going to call tonight for a full parliamentary inquiry into the health services in Western New South Wales. But apparently that has already been granted from what I can hear on the news yesterday. So that could be a very, very, very important step forward for this process. We need to put this in front of the highest level. We cannot go backwards from here. We need to keep taking forward steps. And, as I mentioned before, if it means joining with Lithgow and it means getting community involved in pushing for these sort of things and pushing for better services, then that's the way we have to go. But I brought this into council from the action group so that we can give this an absolute thump. That's what we need to give it. And these people that are running the health system need to get on notice that we are not going to back down, we are not going to go away, and we are calling for better services at the Bathurst Hospital to be on equilibrium with Dubbo and Orange, and no less. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Well said. Now, there was a slight change to that motion by Councillor Christian, so I'll get the General Manager to explain it.
Mr Mayor, I understand the motion to be with the mover and seconder's agreement to include the variation that was proposed. It'll be A to G as written, and H will be request that the local health district guarantee the continuity of services at Daffodil Cottage. And then I will be commence discussions immediately with the local health district as to the future of the Panorama Clinic in Bathurst.
Okay, now I'm going to put that motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We go to a rescission motion. Notice of rescission motion. Councillor Fry.
Mr Mayor, I'm declaring a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in this matter, as I have a relative who is a cousin who is one of the objectors.
Moved, Councillor. Yes, Councillor Christian.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Again, a non-significant interest. Well, Councillor Fry has a relative, I sound like a broken record, but a relative that lives in the immediate vicinity of this DA that is a loud, notable objector. There has been a 6-page report submitted and other letters. This person's probably been the leading voice in the objection. And I find it highly improper and inappropriate that Councillor Fry stay in the room. It's a matter of confidence with the community. How can the community keep confidence in us if he does not remove himself from this vote? It opens up a can of worms, and I'm not comfortable with it at all.
I'll take that on notice, but as we said before, it's up to Councillor Fry to remove himself. It's not the Mayor. So I'll move on. Can I have a mover and a second? Move, Councillor Christian. I'm getting a seconder first.
But we don't have a motion at the moment, Mr Mayor. I just would like to, it's only for council's consideration here.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I took it that Councillor Christian was moving the rescission motion,
Yeah.
which is that council rescind the motion from the meeting of the 19th of August 2020.
So that's what we're voting on? Yeah, okay.
So we've got
That-
moved Councillor Christian,
Please read that
seconded
again.
Councillor North. Now I'll ask for any discussion. Councillor Christian.
Just to be fair, Councillor Morris asked a question just before I did.
Well, I
Through
just would
you,
like to
Mr Mayor.
make sure what-
Excuse me.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the rescission motion is that council rescind the following motion from the ordinary council meeting held 19 August 2020, item 7.2.8, that council A, not support the application for modification of development consent number 2019/367 to delete condition number 5 relating to access onto Howard Street, and B, as the consent authority refuse consent pursuant to section 4.16 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979 to the modification of development application number 2019/367 for the following reason. The development has the potential to impact on the safety, efficiency and effective and ongoing operation and function of the intersection of Howick and Stewart Streets, and call a division.
Okay, now I'm going to call for any discussion. Councillor Christian.
Yes, the reason why I called for a rescission motion came down to some of the conversation that was had at the last meeting, which I didn't think was appropriate or reasonable. This condition may be the make or break of this DA. This company, which is worldwide, I think there's 300 Taco Bells in 3 countries. They know what they're doing. When they recognise a site, they go for that site. And they recognise this as a site that they can use, and all of a sudden we've imposed a very, very significant situation on them that they're not happy with, condition on them that they're not happy with. Now, I feel we can pass this DA tonight, and we can come back at a future date and look at this intersection if we deem it as bad as it is. I find it interesting that, and I know this was asked at the last meeting, that no councillor in this room has ever raised an issue with this particular intersection with council staff, ever. This intersection is the exact same configuration as the intersection up near 7-Eleven with Blandford Street coming on to Stewart Street. You can leave 7-Eleven, which is very busy, and I might add a 24-hour business. They can leave onto Blandford Street, and they can turn right onto Stewart Street if they want to. It is the exact same conditions. And I would like to know how many councillors in this room tonight were here and gave that DA the thumbs up without bringing this to attention. Now, again, if this is an issue that we can come back to later on, then council staff and those concerned councillors can get off their backside and work with the RMS and make sure that this intersection is made safer. It's that simple. You can't just bellyache about something and then do nothing about it. I think this should be dealt with separately to the DA. And again, this is so important. It's 50 odd jobs for locals. And a lot of those people are young people. We're currently in Biz Month. We're in the middle of a recession. We've got a job-killing pandemic. A lot of people aren't hiring, and the employment rate's sky high. And for us councillors to knowingly vote for this condition, knowing that this company may very well walk away, because we have made things a little bit difficult. And if they think if Bathurst doesn't want us, then we'll simply move on. I had a comment from the Dubbo Mayor today, and the Dubbo Mayor said, we'll have it, send it up here. We'll make life easy for these people. Now, I just think it's a disgrace how hard we've made it for Taco Bell, especially when they've imposed their own conditions of shutting cars off if they have to wait and stuff like that. I mean, they've been really, really fair. And again, I don't know if any councillor in this room can look me in the eye, but to jeopardise 50 jobs, particularly for our young people, when it's hard enough for them now to get jobs, is unforgivable when we can come back and address this issue later on. It's that simple.
Councillor Rex.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. It's interesting to note on Councillor Christian's Facebook page back in June 2020 that the Taco Bell DA had actually been approved with minor amendments to improve the traffic conditions, and I repeat, minor, and they were the same conditions that we've put on here tonight that you're asking to be deleted. Councillor Christian, this is a safety issue. I haven't got anything against Taco Bell coming to Bathurst, and I've nothing against jobs. This is something that council needs to look at, and we need to look at the fact that Stewart Street is quite a busy highway. I can note back in May 29th of 2020 of the Western Advocate, where Councillor Orban, I spoke to Councillor Orban today about this, and Mayor Burke were there saying it was a matter of time before somebody was killed on Stewart Street. And I understand and appreciate that was between the blocks of Brilliant and Lambert. But if you put a takeaway establishment where you're looking at putting it, it's going to cause more pedestrian, more traffic, and as a council, we need to be responsible for the safety. It's not about jobs, it's not about Taco Bell, it's the safety of the community and those that are using that highway. And I really want to know why we've gone from minor amendments to approve the traffic congestion to where we are today.
Thank you, Councillor Roach. Any more discussion? Councillor North.
Yeah, this has become a very interesting debate, this one. And simple fact of the matter is that when Councillor Orban raised the concern on that intersection, of all councillors in this room, the job that Councillor Orban has, and like me, has been in Bathurst for a very long time, felt there was a problem on that intersection. So we as a council accepted to put it back to the Taco Bell, and the one authority, which I'm going to say this a bunch of times, there's one authority, which is not RMS, it's Traffic New South Wales, and that one authority did not raise concerns of modifications, that's not the right word, treatments, isn't it? Is treatments a word? Yeah, treatments needed on that corner to turn right. So we put it back to the Taco Bell, and they said, no, we want that removed. So I've, in my time here, seen so many times that we have had a decision to be made, and we've had a consultant here to my right and a consultant to my left with the same information, and they give two different answers. And it seems to come around because they're paid by the different side of the debate. This is a debate that there's only one authority. As much as we have concerns, I think all of us here could name probably 20 intersections, if not more, in town that we have concerns with. But if it's a concern of a Bathurst Regional Council road, we would go to the gentleman I'm looking at over on the far side, our Director of Engineering, and we would have it investigated. This has been investigated, and the number of movements suggested on that area, and there's even a council in this room that I spoke to that said they use that intersection a lot and haven't had problems with it. I'll be honest with you, I go down there a lot, but it's when I go to work very early in the morning, there's no one around, but I don't turn right, I turn left. But I will always take the authority of the main authority, and the fact that there's one here giving me very clear advice that they haven't requested any treatments. Does that mean in the future that treatments might need to be needed on their corner? That's possible. If we knew back when KFC was built on that corner, I think it used to have something to do with the army. There was old sheds or whatever in that area. Bathurst was a very different time then, and on the highway was a great spot. And if you tend to look and wander anywhere through our countryside, these places want to be on the highway for a very good reason. Good traffic goes past. So, the concerns that we had, our planning department had, as far as we've already voted on issues tonight, things that we can impose on them as far as street signage, illumination, all this sort of stuff. But the one area, and I'll keep saying the one area that we had concern about, there is one authority, and that one authority still to this day have said they don't need any treatments on that corner. That doesn't mean in the future. We could probably all make that comment, and I think we all have at times have said one day closer to a potential accident on that corner, or this corner, or whatever corner. That's life. Unfortunately, accidents do occur, and I'll throw something back. When we got our licence, we were told to follow rules. Normally, when an accident occurs, someone has broken the rules, or someone's made a fatal error and hit an accelerator instead of a brake. We've got to understand that when we make decisions based on fact. We could be fearful of every corner in Bathurst at time and every roundabout coming on, because I always thought a roundabout was as a give way, and you should give way. But my God, most people don't slow up at all going on the roundabout. But the rule states otherwise. We have a decision here to bring it back to the table, and the one authority does not have any conditions placed on council or the developer to make treatments. And that is the one whole thing here. If we're fearful of the fact that something may happen, there's many things in life we're fearful of. But what we do know is if people follow the rules, if people do the right thing, and they have been okayed by all the parts to go ahead, what is the debate?
Thank you, Councillor North. Councillor Orban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor North, I'll give you one treatment for that intersection: common sense. And I'm telling you now, Councillor Christian, is 50 jobs worth a life, a possible life on that corner. I don't know. I'm quite comfortable with my decision. I'm still comfortable with it to put that condition on the DA. And you look at that road with 12 to 15,000 vehicle movements a day coming down Stewart Street and up Stewart Street, 3,000 to 4,000 heavy vehicles up and down that road every day. I want to know what Taco Bell's going to do if there is a serious accident there and the right turn gets taken away from that intersection. It goes back to how it is with this condition placed on it. I just am, like I said, I'm still quite comfortable with the decision I've made. I have, in previous traffic meetings, raised concerns on that intersection, and the concerns I have are the right turn off the highway to turn up Howick Street and down Howick Street. The fact that there's just no sight distance when you're going to turn if there's a car on the intersection making the same turn, and people race out of there, and racing around that corner and 20 metres up there's a car stopped to turn into Taco Bell or coming out of there is going to make life very interesting. But look, there has to be a debate on these things. I'm happy to stay where I am and let you guys vote on it. Go hard.
Thank you, Councillor Orban. Councillor Hanger.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask a question of the director or of the general manager? Is the issue here the turning right onto Stewart Street, or is the issue the egress from the Taco Bell site and being able to turn left or right?
I'll get the director to answer that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll be deferring to the councillors who required the condition to be imposed, which I do respect. So my understanding of that position is that there is the right turn from Howard into Stewart is a problem, a risk, but so too is the right turn into Howick or from the premises into Howick, which creates a conflict of cars trying to get in, trying to come out, which then creates a potential bottleneck in that short piece of Howick Street, which means that other turning movements might be made more difficult or at greater risk. But that's my understanding of the position as described to me.
So it's the entrance.
Thank you.
It's the entrance, Councillor Hanger.
So we're not really talking about the right turn into Stewart Street or
No.
the influence. It's the egress, the driving out of the driveway at Taco Bell. So really, Stewart Street doesn't come into it. We shouldn't be talking about Stewart Street. It's the exit from Taco Bell. The distance from the driveway to wherever they're going onto Stewart Street is probably the distance from here to that back wall. There's probably 2 car lengths or 3 car lengths if they come out. The discussion was that there should be no egress, no passage of cars going out of Taco Bell into Howick Street. The cars come in Howick Street and they go out on Stewart Street. That, I think, Mr Mayor, councillors, is the issue. It's not what Traffic New South Wales says or anything like that. I don't know that we've made it terribly hard for Taco Bell. That's the situation. We are the council. It's our town. They can come in, but that's the issue. It's, are we allowing traffic to leave Taco Bell into Howick Street? Yes or no? I'm saying no. Others might say yes. You've got to justify, and you can't. Once a decision is made that yes, they can, and we'll look at it. We might discuss it in 12 months' time, and we'll take that condition away because it's causing so much confusion. You can't do that. You can't do that. You cannot withdraw a condition after it's been allowed to go. So I urge councillors to really think about what they're talking about and what they're going to say. Are you going to allow traffic to go out of Taco Bell onto Howick Street or not? Yes or no? That's the discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Hanger. Any more discussion? Councillor Morse?
I'm intrigued to know if you only have the exit onto Stewart Street, how on earth do you go back to Orange without going round about 6 blocks? But that is not what a sensible traffic plan should allow. They come out of there, they turn left, then they go up round Peel Street. No, they didn't want to go there. Or they go back through the town. They go out, turn right, up Rankin Street. It is not the best way of doing it. And we all know the difficulties with Stewart Street. Over the years, we've had a whole set of traffic lights. We had set traffic lights at Keppel Street. And I can remember Councillor Robin being very vocal about right turns, left turns, straight ahead at the traffic lights in Keppel Street going across the highway. We can change things, which we can't seem to do at Kentucky Fried. I must admit that seems to be quite difficult. However, to have only one exit from that takeaway, it's just crazy. You're going to have cars going everywhere. And they're going to go down residential streets to go back, down, out. They'll have to go down Keppel Street because then they can they turn right at Keppel Street to go to Orange? I've forgotten. But it is a bit of a rat race and it's just not a good idea.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Now, everyone's had it. Is there anyone else like any discussion? No.
Can I ask another question?
You can ask the question, Councillor.
I'll ask, sorry. Can I ask Councillor Morse, would she be happy coming out of that driveway on a Friday night? You may not be there, you may not be going. You're coming out of the driveway into Howick Street and you decide that you're going back to your place. There's 4 cars coming down. There's 6 cars trying to turn in to Taco Bell from Howick Street in that short gap. the 3 or 4 cars, they're piled up in Stewart Street because they all want to go to Taco Bell, and you're going to come out and then try and cut across them and turn right onto the highway. Are you happy doing that? You are. So I'll take you down there one night and we'll have a look. And also the other question is, do we want another set of traffic lights in Stewart Street? That'd make 4 if we put another set of traffic lights.
Point of order,
there.
Mr. Mayor.
So, point of order then, Councillor Christian.
The very same councillor made the argument earlier that we're not actually talking about Stewart Street, yet it suits him now to talk about Stewart Street.
Yes, I'll take that on order. Yes, you are.
Okay.
So, right, okay, we'll move on. You've got the right. Now he's got. I'll give you a question. Is it a question?
Yeah, question.
Hurry up.
Question. Do we want
Yes.
to turn this intersection?
Who's the question to?
Everybody. Do we want to turn? Do we want through you, Mr. Mayor? Do we want to turn this intersection into another KFC debacle?
Okay, right. We're finished
Yeah.
there.
Absolutely.
Well, we want to talk about common sense, Councillor Orban, and I think, Councillor, you've done it all tonight. Councillor Moss, you've used common sense. I mean, if people can only leave onto Stewart Street and they want to go to Orange or they want to go back to South Bathurst or whatever, it's going to be one hell of a trip. I mean, it's just not worth it for people, and they are the concerns of the Taco Bell development. Now, I think it is absolutely disgusting to turn this debate into a what if someone gets killed. That's, Councillor Orban, you're a good man, but that's bloody below the belt. That's the bottom of the barrel. You could say the exact same thing for the aqua park. We better not have the aqua park back ever again because somebody might drown. Someone might die. You could say that about the Bathurst 1000. Let's can it because someone might die. I mean, that is just, I mean, it could happen at any intersection, and I just think that's bottom of the barrel.
Excuse me, councillors, let him finish off.
Now, at the end of the day, we have Blandford Street and Stewart Street, which I have mentioned. You have a number of other streets where you can go into a petrol station any way you like and leave any way you like. I mean, our city's full of them. But like I said, before our last meeting, or the meeting this became an issue, I'd never heard that this was an issue, Howick Street. So I just think it's Councillor Orban, he's identified something, that's fine. But to lose, and of course it's about jobs. People, and this is the problem, the councillors that want to vote against this are trying to distance themselves from the fact that 50 young people could lose or not have an opportunity with employment. That's the bottom line here. We are talking about a DA that creates 50 jobs for locals. And if we don't fix this, and look, I'm actually really glad Councillor Rudge follows my Facebook page. It's Alex J. Christian, Bathurst Councillor, if anyone wants to visit it. It's full of great information. It's very informative. Now, I know she also said at the last meeting that we can't change our mind. Well, of course we can. We thought this was a minor amendment for this company. Well, guess what? This company doesn't think it's a minor amendment. It might seriously hurt their bottom line. So, of course, we can change our mind, and it's no longer a minor issue. It is an issue so significant that this developer could very well walk away, and with it 50 jobs for local kids. And I will harp on about that until I'm blue in the face. Councillor Ian North raised great points. Traffic New South Wales didn't raise any issues here. I actually went to the site with Councillor Hanger. We looked at it, we walked around, we listened to the noise, we saw the traffic. No issue was raised. Now, I'm a betting man. I would have bet if Councillor Orban hadn't brought this up as an issue, Councillor Hanger would not have. This would never have become an issue. But all of a sudden, it's worth 50 young kids potentially losing future employment opportunities. So we need to be very, very careful. This isn't just a decision tonight on whether people can leave this site via Howick Street, which they've been doing incidentally, or they've been doing coincidentally, since Adam was a boy. I mean, this site has been a commercial site forever. People have come and gone however they like. But all of a sudden, it's an issue. And I might add, I drive up and down Stewart Street till I'm blue in the face 4 times a week at least. Okay, yes, it's busy during daylight hours, particularly afternoon. But guess what? 6 o'clock hits, Stewart Street's not actually that busy. It's just not. You get primarily trucks come down, but it's not bumper to bumper. And anyone that tells you it is either hasn't done their research or is just lying to suit their own agenda. Now, the reality is that the original DA did not bring this up as an issue. We are only talking about this tonight because a councillor deems it an issue. That is the only reason. Everybody else involved is happy with it. Okay, so at the end of the day, whoever puts their hand up tonight, this is a vote on jobs. It is. So whoever puts their hand up tonight, have a very good, long, hard think about this, because I tell you now, we'll get crucified if we do not help this company out, because Bathurst, particularly during COVID-19, should be doing everything we can, this council, everything to get businesses here. Okay? And it's been an absolute embarrassment that we've come up with this issue at the 11th hour. It wasn't even discussed prior to the original meeting. So it's got me beat, but a few of these councillors with these concerns need to get off their backsides and fix them. It's no point belly aching about something and doing nothing about it.
Thank you, Councillor Christians. Now I am going to call a division. Those in favour of the rescission motion? Those against? It's for all, and I'll use my casting vote. Carried. What's that, Councillor Hanger? We'll move on. We'll move on to the next one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, given that the rescission motion has got up, we need a motion that supports the modification, and so you need someone to move that.
I need to move Councillor Christian, Councillor North. Yeah.
Oh, I want
Mr. Mayor,
Is he going to be red?
He has to.
Councillor Fry needs to declare, first.
I'm declaring a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in this. As I said before, I have a relative who's an objector and who's also a cousin of mine and who objects to this development on a number of issues.
Thank you, Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, a point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Christian.
And I'd just like it noted, what the hell is the point of standing up here and announcing a non-pecuniary interest? What's the point? Just don't announce the interest.
That's up to Councillor Fry, which he has stated, so we'll move on. Yes, read it. Read it now, please.
Mr. Mayor, I have the motion as following: that Council A support the application for modification of development consent number 2019/367 to delete condition number 5 relating to access onto Howard Street, and B, as the consent authority, grant consent pursuant to section 4.16 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979 to the modification of development application number 2019/367, and C, call a division.
Well, I'll call any discussion on it before I go there. I know we have discussed it just previously, but you can finish off, Councillor Christian.
Oh, is there going to be discussion?
Well, no. Is there any discussion? I'll ask again. No, there isn't. There isn't. So Councillor Christian has the right of reply.
All I'd like to say is to those councillors that voted for this, congratulations. We're currently, like I've said a few times tonight, celebrating Biz Month. We are in a recession. We've got this job-killing pandemic. People aren't hiring, and the unemployment rate is sky high. And I think the decision council has made tonight is significant. It shows that Bathurst is open for business. If you want to start a franchise, and quite often it's local people that start these franchises, just because it's called McDonald's or it's called KFC or Taco Bell, whatever, quite often it's locals that take on that franchise. So it's money in the community, it's in the pockets of young people, And I think it's fair. It's fair game, and I think it's great. We're not only helping our economy, but we're also giving people leaving school a great opportunity to go and get a job. And I think it's fantastic. And as for the councillors that voted against this, look, I can respect Councillor Orban's concerns. I can, and in fact I do. However, I do not believe they were significant enough to warrant probably Taco Bell walking away. To the other councillors that didn't raise this as an issue, it's incredibly disappointing.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Christians. We'll move on, and now I'll call it. No, I am calling a division. Now he had the right of reply. I'm ruling now. Yeah, I'm ruling now. Sorry, Councillor Roach. I'm calling a division.
Is it a point of order? Like if it's a point of order,
Is it a point of order or?
No, I think I have a right to speak on this.
You don't have a right of reply to finish off. You've had your time to speak on it.
Not on this.
Actually, has.
No, I haven't.
I called and you didn't respond.
Warren said he would hold back, and no one else did at the time.
Yes, and then I called on Councillor Christians to finish up as a right of reply, and you didn't interrupt then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on. I'm calling a division. Those in favour? Those against? It's 4-all. I'll use my vote. Carried. Thank you. Oh, well, you know, that's what a mayor's got to do. Right. Number 12, Councillors' Delegate Reports. Councillors, the minutes of the Bathurst Community Safety Committee. A mover and a seconder. Councillor North. Councillor Orban. Any discussion? There's no discussion. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 2, the minutes of the Bathurst Regional Youth Council, 28th of July. Please have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Morse, Councillor Orban. I'll put the motion. Any discussion?
Yes, I would just like to congratulate the Youth Council on their Are You OK project, because it was a very simple thing to wrap the trees in McCarthy Park, and they looked good, and it certainly brought the attention to everybody to say, are you okay? So congratulations to the Youth Council.
Okay. Is there any discussion more than what Councillor Morse has just said? Councillor Christian.
Only that yesterday I took part in the Youth Council Committee meeting, and it turns out that it's actually the last time those particular councillors will get together. There's a new lot coming in. I think they've had about 21 people put their hand up and show an interest in joining the Youth Council, which I think is fantastic. I think that's a number maybe more than they can actually have, so it's going to be competitive, which is brilliant. But just to the Youth Mayor, Jack Lynch, to the Youth Deputy Mayor, Natalia Burgess, and all those youth councillors, they should be tremendously proud of themselves to put their hand up and to basically perform a civic service is excellent. Their Are You OK Day was brilliant the other day. What they do on New Year's is excellent. Their outdoor cinema experiences. I mean, you can't even call them kids. I mean, they're young adults. They're really impressive people. And we're going to be, I think we're going to miss this group. Apparently, it's one of the best groups to ever come through. And I think they're not only a credit to themselves, but they're a credit to their families and they're a credit to the city. That goes without saying. And I also don't want to leave out council staff. What they do is really, really special. The time and effort they put in and the events that they push for, it's just brilliant. So I cannot speak highly enough of the Youth Council and what they do. And I wish all those councillors moving on the very best in the future.
I fully agree with you, Councillor Christian. Is there any more discussion? Councillor North?
I'll just add to what Councillor Christian said. I was going to get him to say it, but also they do a lot of wonderful work. We all know that, but they've actually put their hand up to help with Australia Day now too. expressed interest to come on board and help us. We're looking to have a new look and a new feel about Australia Day, and the Youth Council have made it clear that they want to be part of that, which is wonderful.
Is there any more discussion? Monica, you have the right to reply. Okay. Put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Council's meeting with community groups, working parties held on the 12th of August. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor North, Councillor Orban. Any discussion? No discussion, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item number 13, we resolve into confidential committee of a whole to deal with confidential reports. Councillors, we are now due to go into that. Could I have a motion? Councillor North, Councillor Christian. Are there any members of the public and press who wish to make representation to the council as to whether the matter should or should not be dealt with in confidential committee? As there is no representation, now I'll put the motion to go into confidential committee. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Could I please ask the doors to be shut and ensure the recording
Mr Mayor, the closed session has made the following recommendations to Council. The first item relates to a commercial lease at Part Lot 193 DP821845, known as Old Raglan School Hall at 58 Christie Street, Raglan. And the recommendation is that Council approve entering into a new commercial lease agreement for Part Lot 193 in DP 821845, known as Old Raglan School Hall at 58 Christie Street, as detailed in the report. The second item is to do with the Pacific Cars 1000 motor racing event agreement, and the proposal is that Council act in accordance with the recommendations of the report. The next one is request for financial assistance, Bathurst Tennis Centre, and the proposal is that Council A, approve 100% rent waiver for the month of April 2020, and B, approve a 50% rent waiver commencing from the month of May 2020, and for each subsequent month that Mr and Mrs Mitten remain eligible as defined by the National Cabinet Mandatory Code of Conduct, SME Commercial Leasing Principles Code, and C, reassess this decision at the end of December 2020. The next item relates to the Catholic Diocese and the footpaths surrounding the cathedral. Resolve that Council, recommended Council that it act in accordance with option 6 as detailed in the report, with Council staff to undertake the works. The next item is for the tender for the disposal of used motor oil, and resolve that Council act in accordance with the Director of Engineering Services report. The next item is to do with road widening and land acquisition affecting Ophir Road, Dunkeld, and the recommendation is that Council A, approve the proposed road widening affecting Lot 2 and DP 1170456, Lot 104 in DP 1208454, and Lot 126 in DP 750394 at Ophir Road, Dunkeld, and dedicate the road to the public. And B, approve the terms proposed as detailed in the Director of Engineering Services report. The next item is to do with the Junction Reuse and Recovery Centre, and it's recommended that Council enters into a new lease agreement with Hope Bathurst Incorporated, trading as Hope Care, the Junction Hope Care, for a period of 5 years, with the option for an extension for a further 5 years as detailed in the report. And the last item is tender for stormwater drainage points, and it's recommended that Council accept the tender from Wholesome Australia Proprietary Limited for supply of water, drainage pipes, headwalls and lintels to 31 December 2022.
Thank you, General Manager. I have a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor North, Councillor Christian. Item number 16. The meeting is closed now at 9:25, and thank you for your night's work. Thank you.
See you, Councillor Roach.